He understood that it was sudden. Hero Cardosa woke up, and he had memories of his past life. Although he lives in the kingdom of Cardosa, he remembered that in his past life he was an office worker in Japan. A terribly overcrowded train, boring work, unfair human relations. He was freed from this life and reincarnated as a prince from a country in another world. At first, he was even happy for a second that he had become a prince, but this is a country below the poverty line. Hero fought with his mentor. He dodged his mentor's blow, and then he pointed the sword straight at his throat. He finally defeated his mentor, sheathed his sword. Hero defeated his Clifford, the sword instructor and head of the Clifford clan, in just 2 years. Hero thanked him, but if he had the strength he had in his youth, he would not have won. He said that his defeat was inevitable anyway, and at this rate, no enemy will be afraid of him. But Hero then asked who would want to attack this country anyway. Even if they are conquered, there will be nothing to take away. Other countries do not pay attention to them, because they will be ballast for them. Such a desperate country. The country where he was born is a small state with a population of only 1,000 people, the Kingdom of Cardosa. He is also the third prince of this country. His older brothers are strong, of course, but they are dangerous. There is a possibility that the throne will pass to him. Usually people are happy about this, but since it is happening in this country, he is not happy at all. The soil here is infertile, so they can't grow anything, and they don't have any resources. This country is not only small, but also terribly poor. A completely hopeless place. Then he decided to leave. His, of course, always says this, but for the prince to intentionally do this. Hero said that their soil is infertile, and not many crops can be grown on it. He wants to increase the area of sown fields as quickly as possible. They came to the city. The residents were surprised that Hero had dropped in on them today and decided to share their achievements with him. They have been cultivating the land since the morning. At first they covered everything without any problems, but then things got tough because of the problematic tree. Hero asked what kind of tree it was. Then they brought him to a huge tree. Even 10 men couldn't cope with him. He could definitely be taken with an axe. It's probably been standing here for several hundred years, and Hero can't even bring himself to cut it down. But in order for them to have a harvest, it will have to be cut down. In this world, there are magical abilities, a power that manifests itself only in representatives of select families. If you have them, you can improve your physical capabilities. Taking out his sword, he swung it at the tree, and he struck straight at the tree trunk. It was instantly cut into 2 halves. The residents then decided to remove the obstacle and finish cultivating the land in this place for today. Hero was offered to eat steamed potatoes. Some of the workers would not refuse food either. At this rate, by summer they will have cultivated a field here, and if they plant potatoes, they will be able to harvest by winter. They are all very good people. Last winter they were dying of hunger, but this time Hero doesn't want to let that happen. They still need fields, and anyway, they are now developing the land. They grew this potato from seed potatoes brought from another country. And thanks to the fact that potatoes appeared that could grow even in such weak soil, this country was, by and large, saved. However, it cost them a lot. Hero walked through the hall very tired. In the morning, sword training, and in the afternoon, training in governing the country, and in between, he was engaged in land development. Quite a lot of things. Then the girl called him. It was his sister, whom he had not seen for a very long time. She was glad she met him. Because she came to pick up a forgotten thing, he is now on an expedition, so she ran away here. Her name is Miali Cardosa, the first princess of the Kingdom of Cardosa. She sacrificed herself. At one reception, a prince from a rich country noticed her and married her on the condition that he would provide assistance to their country. Thanks to this, they didn't have so many victims last year. He remembers the whole hardship of those times. This girl is his first love. But he couldn't help anyone, so he let her go. Her husband is preoccupied, and there are unflattering rumors about him. She is thinner even than when there was nothing to eat in their country, and he also saw bruises on her wrist, visible from her sleeve. He felt very sorry for his sister. So he suggested that they at least have dinner together, and she didn't mind. After a while, the table was ready. They prepared water for her, soup from the remains of vegetables, potatoes boiled in salted water, and dried meat. Even this turned out pretty passable. Then Miali remembered that she had heard that Hero had been actively engaged in business lately, and thanks to him they were finishing developing even those lands that were supposed to be developed only next year. He tried hard because there was no place to plant the potatoes she sent, so that her efforts would not be in vain. She then thanked him and called him a good child. Hiro asked not to call him a child anymore, but Mealy said that he was really just a child and asked him not to do anything stupid. He didn't intend to, he said. He is not all-powerful. He can help in developing the lands because he has magical abilities. He is strong because he was trained by an instructor in swordsmanship. If you look at it in relation to the whole country, then his strength alone is the same as powerlessness. He wants to save the country, and to fulfill this desire, as an ordinary office worker, he had no knowledge at all. He did not know how to apply knowledge in practice, and everything went wrong for him endlessly many times. And yet he wanted to do something he just recklessly does everything he can every day. Mealy noticed that he was lost in thought and told him not to worry, because his little sister would definitely think of something. Hiro asked her if she would come back if he made the country rich, but it was impossible, although she was not against it. After eating, she will leave. She loves her charming Hiro very much. Later, she was already standing near the cart. Probably, today she came to convey help from that man. Those things for which her sister exchanged her life. Out of anger, he hit the windowsill with his fist. Hiro wants to be strong. At this rate, he won't get anything by just trying, neither with the sword nor with his studies. Unless something special happens, then that's the end. He will change the current situation, but is there no force suitable for his situation? Suddenly, he heard a voice that was going to give him answers. He suddenly felt a pang in his chest. This made his heart ache. Then he turned around but saw no one, and I decided to ask who was here. He heard the voice again, which said that he was the respondent. Something was coming out of him, and the pain was mixed with heat. A voice said that it had always been inside him and watched over him, and now, when he begged so hard, it will definitely become his strength. In this world, there are people who were born with magical abilities. If you have the ability, there is a small chance that you can also wield a special power called magic. A clod of magical power that provides answers to any question of the owner, and the respondent is his magic. Later, Hiro was sitting in his room. The respondent allows you to get the desired information about the thing that the magician sees, and the amount of information increases depending on the magical power used. The limit of use was 1 time in 30 days. It was a pretty handy feature, but using it only once a month made things more complicated. But Hiro still decided to try what is needed now for this world. He uses his magic to learn more about it. Then he asked the respondent how to make fertilizer, but one that he could make himself, and that would be as effective as possible. The answer immediately came to his mind. He needed nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and so on. This was cool. But Hiro asked if the respondent could name the shops where he could buy all this. The respondent confirmed the maximum consumption of magic power and decided to reveal A-rank information as an exception. It usually takes time to create fertilizer, in case Hiro needs it in a short time. Then he recommended studying alchemy. Hiro was surprised when he heard about chemistry. If you use alchemy, the work time will be reduced by half, said the respondent. This magic, which the church banned several hundred years ago, is forbidden magic. But the respondent knows the method of preparation, and with the help of alchemy, all this can be realized. If he does this, he will save not only this country, but even this world as a whole. And all this happens because the church banned alchemy, but he is not afraid of the bans. To learn alchemy, you need to go about 24 kilometers to the southeast. The respondent then sent the coordinates directly to Hiro's brain. There is a legacy of the legendary alchemist Kronel Kaiser, which is best taken for yourself. That same night, Hiro set out on his journey. In the storm, he knocked a hole in the rock, and he climbed inside to discover a cave there. This is the place that the respondent pointed to. It was cold due to the lack of fresh air, but he decided not to use magic to increase his physical strength because he did not know how much further he had to go. Walking further through the cave, it transformed into a passage with a path. And in front of him there was already a huge door. It looked like a puzzle because it was definitely not natural. But luckily, Hiro was a puzzle pro. He started to put this puzzle together on the door, and when he finished, the puzzle turned into a button that he pressed. The door began to open slowly. It was warm inside, and beyond that, a room was visible. Having already entered the room, Hiro was presented with a beautiful view. Finally, someone has been found to inherit Kronel's alchemy. He waited for this moment for 160 years and 32 days. Hiro asked if he was Kronel Kaiser, the legendary alchemist. It was true, but not the most accurate, because it was just a golem with a recorded memory who was waiting here for his successor. Alchemy could do this too. and Hiro understood that for the church, all this was a desecration. Suddenly, the golem said that he had no time left, because his existence was temporary, and in 5 days, all the magical powers that kept him here would run out. If that was the case, then every second mattered, so Hiro decided not to hesitate, and immediately asked him to teach alchemy. The golem was glad that he didn't think long, and was going to hammer the knowledge of alchemy into him in just 5 days. Hiro even thought he was smiling. He has little food and water left, and it seems he will be able to train for these 5 days without rest or sleep, restoring himself with magic. The main problem is that he won't be in the castle all these days. Golem said that everything he learns in these 5 days will only be the basis. After that, he will need to study from the materials. This means that after learning the basics and concepts, Hiro will be able to effectively study independently. The golem then asked what the youth's name was. Hiro Cardosa, that's his name. When the golem heard his last name, he thought that this lineage and these eyes were similar to someone. But I decided not to dwell on it too much, and decided to start the lesson as quickly as possible. Hiro was only happy about this and called him teacher. No one has called him that for a long time. And so, after 5 days, he completed his training. Cronal asked if the basis of alchemy was perfect. He replied that yes, because alchemy is activated by infusing magical power in different waves into a special blue gemstone. Unlike other magic, alchemy is like programming by regularity, infusing magical power in waves into the code, and the blue gemstone is like the compiler. To form magic or code, the general concept of function, pointer, array, and parameter is required. So after calculating the information about the location of the seals, the connections between the magical powers must be thoroughly mixed. And as a result of this combination and smelting, one can produce matter or body, soul, such as rational magic. And if we generalize everything, it turns out something like this. Cornell was glad he could. If there had been anyone else there, he would hardly have been able to teach him the basics. But Hiro was lucky that he knew programming. If he didn't know it, it would have taken him a few days to understand the basics. But Cronal said that there are no other subjects that are similar to alchemy. Among all magic, alchemy is the most rational, the most beautiful magic. But now, he is calm and can finally leave. He accepted him as his successor and entrusted him with his accumulated wisdom. He thanked Hiro and prayed that he would have even more of this knowledge in his hands, and let him pass it on to the next generation. Hiro thanked his teacher. After all, he will definitely do it. He learned the basics, mastered the concept and the idea. He would later study the materials left behind by the legendary alchemist Cronal Kaiser. He received the power, alchemy, which was banned and disappeared from this world, but with this power, you can change everything. It's been 2 years since Hiro started studying alchemy. To put it simply, alchemy is a processing technology. Since everything requires a material, you can change the substance a little, but you can't turn stone into gold. But if you use this convenient magic, then, depending on the plan, you can earn a lot of money and become rich. If you think only about yourself, then it would be better for him to leave this kingdom. He would find a place for himself anywhere. But he won't do that, because he loves his kingdom. Even if he only has this power, he will save the kingdom. He will be able to bring his sister back. For this, he has studied a lot of things, and finally he will start moving. He will definitely do it, even if he has to do it alone. At least that's what he thought. A girl greeted him and called him a crybaby Hiro. Hiro recognized her as Hibana. Hibana Clifford is Hisa's granddaughter. She went to the Kinar Principality to learn swordsmanship, and she is also Hiro's childhood friend. Her studies were over, so she returned home. Hiro asked Hibana to stop calling him a crybaby. He has changed. Hibana smirked at this request. His said that she was already 14 years old and had enough skills to join the Bronze Knightly Order of the Principality of Kinar. This was the very same powerful knightly order that only a high-class swordsman could join. Even though bronze is the lowest, it was still impressive. Then Hiro asked why she came back. If she could join the Bronze Knight Order at such an age, then she would be able to join the Golden Knight Order, and isn't that an honor for a swordsman? Hearing all this, Hibana pouted at Hiro, and she said that she came back because of their communication. If suddenly he now says that he forgot about him, then she will hit him. The two of them sat in a field of flowers. She comforted Hiro, who was crying because Mealy was getting married, and asked him to smile, otherwise they would be sent home. But Hibana herself was crying too. After all, she also loves Mealy and doesn't want to see her so sad. Hiro then said that he would change this kingdom. He can't now, but he will definitely change it. And since that was the case, Hibana decided to become his sword. They made a promise to each other. Hiro was surprised that she remembered this. It was natural. She wished she could say so, but in reality, she couldn't understand herself when she returned to this kingdom. As she grew older, she kept thinking that this country could no longer be changed. And when she went outside, she noticed how dangerous and questionable the kingdom of Cardosa was. Imagining him giving up his dream scared her very much, and she thought it would be nice to join the Golden Knightly Order. It would have been a good idea, but Hiro still asked how much she was here. From her grandfather's letter, she learned that Hiro could actually save the kingdom, because he didn't give up and is trying to do something. That's why she came back, wanting to make sure he hadn't really given up on his dream. Hiro was surprised and looked at Hisa, who smiled back. He knew that Hiro would soon take action, so he wrote to Hibana. And he really predicted it very accurately. Since infancy, his always looked after him, and he could never hide any secret from him. He cried all the time back then. As a child, His and Hibana laughed at this. Hiro has Hisa, and Hibana is back. Now is probably the best time. Hibana then asked to wait, and she asked how he was going to save this good-for-nothing kingdom. She was very interested. Does he really have the power to accomplish what he has planned? After all, she also loves this country, so she wants to save what can be saved. She wants to fulfill their promise. But if this is an impossible dream, then all they can do is leave it. Then Hiro decided to show them something interesting. He led them into the basement, and he showed them a huge hall with a library and a work area. His and Hibana were shocked. They both didn't know that there was such a basement in this castle, because Hiro created it. Hibana was surprised that Hiro created all of this, both this room and that passage into the room. It would take several decades for one person to build a stone wall and install electricity. His also thought so. It was simply impossible to build something like that with the skills of the carpenters of their kingdom. Hiro said that it is possible thanks to magic. It is impossible with human power. His kept thinking about what he was up to, but he couldn't even imagine that he would prepare something like this. But they were still surprised early. What Hiro wants to show them is still ahead, and he decided to show the results of his desperate training and research over the past 2 years. This is an invention that will greatly change the small kingdom of Cardosa. He opened the door and they saw a lot of vegetation. Inside grew wheat, which was almost impossible to grow in the kingdom because their ancestors tried to grow it so many times, but not a single attempt succeeded. It was a testing ground, where he creates and experiments on things that will help their country. One of the things was wheat. He strengthened its vitality through selection. It can now grow even in cold climates and is less prone to disease, and the growth rate has also increased greatly. Wheat can be planted in spring and early summer with exceptional speed, and it tastes good too. It has a lot of sugar, so if you bake bread, it will be fluffy and sweet. Hibana was amazed and asked what would happen if she planted it on the ground, but would it really grow the same way? But it won't work, no matter how amazing the wheat is. If there is no nutritious soil, it will not germinate. And I decided to show what kind of fertilizer is used on this soil. And he showed them the corpse of a monster that lay among the wheat, creatures that are devastating their country. But their bodies contain miasma that makes them unfit for consumption and pollutes the environment, Heath said. That's why Hiro came up with a seed. He planted a seed in a corpse, and a sprout immediately jumped out of it. Then the buds will begin to sprout, neutralizing miasmas during the process of assimilation of nutrients. After this, the body begins to dry out and return to the soil. And the soil becomes very nutritious, since there is a lot of energy in the monster's body. I couldn't even believe it. It was so amazing. That wheat will be able to grow in this country. The land of this kingdom can do a lot, maybe even become an exporter of food to large countries. This is all very interesting. But this is just the beginning, and with his power, he can change everything. When he made that promise, he was just a helpless child, but now everything is different. He has the power to make his dream come true. And he suggested that she keep their mutual promise. Hibana happily agreed. With his power, this kingdom will soon change, and she asked to see it from a special place. And she promised to become his sword. His looked at him and turned to Hiro. He asked again, because it was he who built this basement and grew the wheat. Hiro confirmed this. He asked if all this was done with the help of something that the church had banned several hundred years ago. Still, nothing can be hidden from his, Hiro said, and confirmed that he used alchemy. If anyone finds out about this, the church will not sit idly by. But Hiro told him not to worry. He would do everything right. After all, he has already decided everything. He knows it's a forbidden power, but if he has a chance to save the kingdom, he'll take it. The influence of the church is nothing to him, and he will defend his beloved cause. His and Hibana looked at him in surprise. Hiro's gaze was very determined. Then his decided that he would help him, and asked him to allow me to support him. Suddenly, Hibana grabbed him, and she pulled him back, saying that his was always touching Hiro. Because he uses alchemy, she won't change her mind. And if they do something bad to him because of this, she will kill them. Then his began to count on them. Hibana offered herself to Hiro as a knight, and asked if he could initiate her now. Heath then said that to become a knight, one must have an official initiation ceremony, and besides, she cannot be the personal knight of someone from the royal family. She thinks this rule is very stupid. The royal family itself must initiate the knight, conduct the ceremony, give the knight the sword they made. Because initiation into a knight is a very important tradition, and nothing can be missed in this matter. Hiro didn't mind holding a ceremony to let everyone know that she was his knight, because she had become his secret accomplice, and he needed her to be able to act freely. Hibana suggested using some cheap sword for this, but Hiro didn't want it because she would be protecting him with that sword. Then she jokingly asked if he could make her a sword using alchemy. But Hiro was already planning to do this. He will make a sword that can surpass even the sacred sword of the Principality of Kinar. He aimed quite high. In the Principality of Kinar, only 12 knights of the Golden Order are allowed to have sacred swords. If they cannot do this, then they will not be able to enrich their kingdom. And Hiro asked Hibana to give him his sword. He will use it as a base and make a new one. Also, it is better to use a sword that has been used for a long time, with a good center of gravity and a long blade. The material of this sword is an iron-based alloy. The blade is very well forged and polished. He even wondered how many decades he would need to train in blacksmithing to make such a sword. He even feels like it's a little unfair that he's using magic for this, and he asked Hibana if she had any requirements for the sword. Her technique places more emphasis on speed than weight. She prefers to cut the opponent rather than crush, so it would be ideal if the sword was light in the range where it is necessary to maintain intensity, shorten the length of the blade a little more, and lower the center of gravity just a little. There were clearly more demands than Hiro thought, but he still agreed, and took the thing out of his pocket. He took a pose and began to prepare for the spell. He focused on these two subjects. Magic began to form around the small object. And in his second hand, a second sword formed. It was identical to Hibana's sword. That's how he uses this bracelet. And besides, the sword was made of mithril, a legendary metal. This is what alchemy is. Hibana stood in front of the knight's statue and swung at him, and she struck him straight with her sword. The statue instantly shattered into 2 pieces. Hibana was very surprised by this. She didn't feel anything, even though she cut the statue. Hiro was also surprised. Without using magical body strengthening, she was able to cut the statue in 2. Hibana wanted to show him her true strength. As expected, from her appearance, one can tell that she is quite good at controlling magical power, but has not used it until now. Then she turned to Hiro, and she asked if she could take this mithril sword, but Hiro immediately refused. Because it's his sword, and he gave it to her temporarily. But he told her not to be too upset, and he promised to make her a sword much better than this experimental one. He was going to make it from the materials he had stored. She couldn't wait for it anymore. She is so eager for the sword that she cannot be let down. And Hiro began to make a sword for Hibana. The materials he uses for the sword are special. He won't use mithril. If he's making a really strong sword, then he has good materials. And these are not metals. The fangs and skins of the monsters he used as fertilizer had properties similar to metal. Hard, sticky, and difficult to break. Just as they cast magic on their swords, monsters cast magic on their own weapons, so there is a very close connection to magical power. Although it is a very powerful weapon, the magic sword made from the body of a monster harms the bearer with its miasma. However, there are wielders of a magic sword who are strong enough to wield such a sword. While infected with miasma, the elimination of miasma is the basis of alchemy. All the miasma began to gather into the ball. She quickly gathered herself inside the ball. This crystal ball is an alchemical tool created to eliminate miasma. This ball was filled to the brim with miasma. He decided to leave it for the future. Then, this material from the monster, freed from miasma, is crushed into pieces with a special hammer that he made with his own hands, and melted down. If you try to do it through ordinary forging, you will need a huge furnace and special chemicals. He currently uses 3 types of monsters: Big Bear, Hunting Dog, and Golden Eagle. They are all powerful monsters, and each part of them needs to be melted and mixed, and thus they will become one whole. Depending on the combination, the synergistic effect is enhanced. This method of making a sword by combining monsters was suggested to him by the respondent, so he boasted that he could make a sword equal to the sacred sword of the Kinar Principality. He also has the knowledge that he collected from the respondent over the past 2 years. The next step will be to give the sword a shape using magic, what Hibana asked for, the center of gravity, the length of the blade, the look, and so on. He created it. It was beautiful. It's hard to believe that it will be used for murder. Now the last step is to apply runes to the blade that mean cutting, to increase the power of the sword. And then apply the enchantment. This is real alchemy. The magical power seeps into the material and its essence is enhanced. Enchanted base cut. With the help of enchantment, the sword became stronger, strengthening its base. It turned out pretty great. Hibana will definitely be happy. Hibana Clurford began to be knighted. She made her vow that her sword belonged to Prince Hiro. She whispered, thanks to Hiro for making her the best sword. She had never seen such a beautiful and strong sword. But she didn't look very cheerful, and he asked if she didn't like it. Hibana said that she was actually just nervous and just scared of what people might say if she didn't do well. But it's impossible for Hibana to fail, Hiro said. Most likely, it makes no difference to anyone that the third prince has such a knight in his service. But Hibana is Hisa's granddaughter, and she studied in the Principality of Kinar, so there is nothing to complain about as a knight. In fact, everyone here sees Hibana's true strength. I want her to serve me. There are definitely people here who think so, but unfortunately, for them this is not the case. Hibana is his friend. They share one promise. She is his partner, his strength. And finally, he can start moving. He has a lot of things to do with his comrades, but there are still 2 players who want to act. Hibana thanked Hiro for knighting her and promised to protect his sword. But she also had something for him. It was unexpected for him. Then she showed him the toy sheep. She said it was his respondent, which looked more like some kind of accessory. When he uses responder, it looks like he's talking to himself. And it makes her feel a little sad, so she wondered what would happen if he had someone else take over as responder. And then she took the toy, pretended to be him, and said hello to Hiro. He said he would think about whether he would use it. And I asked her what she was doing, and she said she was training. What interested him was that she was doing this right in the room with him. She said that there was nothing to be done. Since she was his knight, she had to be by his side. And the point of becoming someone's sword is to become stronger than everyone else, and if she doesn't become stronger, then she's a liar. She knows 8 more people who are stronger than her, and she needs to catch up with them because she uses all her free time for training. It turns out that she is confident that she is stronger than 4 knights from the 12 Golden Order of the Principality of Kinar. But it was enough for Hiro that she was with him. They wouldn't get the Bronze Knights even if they saved up money, but it was good that he had Hibana. He asked how she liked the sword. She was delighted. The sword was very strong. You can kill an enemy with a sword, only if he does not use a sacred or magic sword. You can also ignore a person with simple armor. Since she is his knight, she needs a sword. And he was sure that she could handle him, and maybe she can practice today. Hiro then told her to get ready to leave. They were about to leave the castle. Suddenly a guy appeared in the doorway who asked Hiro where he was going. It was Agatha's brother Cardosa, the second prince of the Cardosa kingdom. Agatha noticed that Hiro, as always, is busy chasing popularity among the people, and being a prince, he makes new discoveries, hiding his identity, imitating the town doctor, and he asked what he would do next time, because there were all sorts of rumors going around. He came to check what Hiro was doing after he tried to distribute the wheat. Hiro needs to be careful, but there is no escape from him. He said that he has no intention of running after popularity, because he just wants this kingdom to become rich. But Agatha was sure that Hiro was simply trying to eliminate him and his brother Takuma, and then become king. Hiro repeated that he was not going to do that. People are knowledgeable in different areas. If we take politics, then he is not a rival to Agatha. And besides, Agatha herself is more suitable for the role of king. Depending on the situation, they need a strong king. And Takumu's older brother is brave and a good strategist, and he can't be that with his incomplete talent. Agatha believed Hiro, because this kingdom is held together thanks to Miali and Hiro. He even thought that brother Agatha would say something like that. But then he said that Hiro is trying to jump over his head and hide what he is doing now, but he will not succeed. Hiro asked him to stop talking nonsense and get to the main thing, because Agatha could not go to only his hated younger brother. Agatha said that he is still not cute. Brother Takumu asked me to pass this on. Hiro is about to turn 14 years old, and as an adult, he must serve the imperial family by fighting monsters and ordered to prepare. Then Agatha noticed that Hiro had chosen a knight for himself, although it would have been better to choose a whole squad than one person. Hiro asked if he was worried about him. He immediately said no, and it would be unbearable if he had to look after him. Hiro told him not to worry because he was strong, although not as strong as Takumu's brother. He remained the same, and then Agatha noticed that the girl was oozing with bloodlust, which she didn't even try to hide. He came up to her and asked if she wanted to come to him. Hibana was surprised by this proposal, and Hiro understood why he came here. Brother needs a knight like Hibana, who has reached bronze rank. Agatha promised to give her a much better weapon than Hiro. Hibana immediately refused because he would obviously be boring, and she has already promised to become Hiro's sword. Agatha felt a little sorry, but an odd man sees an odd man from afar, so he turned around and started to walk away when he remembered something. And he told Hiro that if he suddenly needed him in his plan, he should call him. This is the real reason why he came here. If Takumi becomes king, then everything will end, and for that to happen, they need to unite. In all likelihood, he wants to use Hiro, wants to stand above Takumu's brother in the succession to the throne. However, only he can effectively use Hiro's inventions, he can only make things, and he needed Agate's power. It was a very good offer, but he said that he would think about it if suddenly Agatha really wanted to help him, then his help would be useful. After that, Agatha began to wait for the correct answer from him. Hibana was very indignant. He invited her to join him so frivolously, she could never understand him. Agatha was sincere, that's what Hiro confirmed. In that, he offered enough common sense to not be a lie, but Hibana still considered him a liar. After all, he always said bad things about Hiro, and there is a gap between them, the brothers. It is not even clear whether he is their blood relative. One day, his father brought him out of nowhere and said that Hiro was his son. The brothers are naturally upset that he, a child of unknown origin, has the right to inherit the throne. Hibana then remembered what he had said recently. She asked again, Hiro doesn't want to become king. It was true, the position of a prince suited him better because he could do whatever he wanted. If he becomes king, he will have no time for alchemy, so he will blame everything on his brothers. But Hibana thought he would become king. She has good intuition, and of course, she would like to be the king's knight. But then they decided to go. Today they would need her strength, which she was so proud of. After some time, they were in the forest, or more precisely, the Devil's Forest. Here she can really fight strong monsters. Hibane was happy about this, because she simply didn't develop from simple training. These are quite big words for such a dangerous place. Devil's Forest. A forest where evil monsters nest, live here, and can cause colossal damage to the territory. Even if a monster is killed, its corpse cannot be used in the future, so they will have to be left in the forest, a heavy burden for the kingdom of Cardosa. Hibana asked if they were sure that this kind of clothing would be suitable for a stealth mission. But Hiro said that he made these clothes using alchemy. He made it from the thread of an insect monster and enchanted it in the same way as her sword. These threads have very high protection, similar in hardness to steel. Hibana decided to try to pierce Hiro with a knife, and she really didn't cut him. Hiro asked why she didn't believe him. If it were just clothes, he would have died already. But she said that a person who gives false information at a life-threatening moment must die. And anyway, he's not dead, so what's the problem? She asked. She was taught this in the Principality of Kinar, because there you can only be strong. Hiro realized that as her master, he would have to rid her of her bad habits. And it certainly wouldn't be easy. Hibana added that Hiro is her childhood friend, and it's easy to talk to him. He was even a little happy to hear this. Hibana asked why they came here. Hiro remembered that he hadn't said anything, and decided to give 2 reasons. First, he wants to see for himself what resources are here. She asked if there could really be ore deposits in this forest. It was possible, but he wants to know what kind of monsters are here. After all, monsters are also a kind of resource. Hiro used the monster as fertilizer, and not only that, the clothes they wear and even Hibana's sword were made from monsters. With alchemy, he can use monsters. Monsters are the only resource their kingdom has. She agreed with him and asked if he wanted to know what kind of monsters were here, and what they could do. He confirmed this, and for this they will go deeper into the forest. She then said that if Hibana suddenly became scared, she could run away calmly, because the monsters they had fought so far were weak, since they had lost the fight for territory, and it was impossible to compare to how much stronger the monsters were waiting for them deep in the forest. She said that she couldn't run away because her blood was boiling, and she would finally be able to test her baby in action. It was very reassuring to hear from her. They arrived before the barricades, so there will be dangerous monsters ahead. Hibana remembered and asked what the second reason was. He said that everything that is done to save this kingdom is important. Hibana didn't understand what he meant. Suddenly, guards approached them and asked Prince Hiro what they were doing there, and asked him to leave, because it was dangerous here. He said not to worry, and asked if they knew his sword. And he added that his knight was stronger than him, so there would be no problems. And he asked them to let them through, because it was a very important matter. The guards looked at him, and they listened to him, but asked him not to overdo it. And they asked to be more careful. Suddenly, they heard the sound of armor in the distance. They still needed to talk sometime. He wouldn't want to meet him so early. The guards opened the gates, and behind the gates stood a man with an army. He returned safe and sound. It was Takumu Cardosa, the first prince of the Cardosa kingdom. Takumu didn't expect to meet Hiro here. He didn't expect it either, and asked if they were really going to kill monsters. He said that this is a battlefield, and one cannot be unprepared here. Then he cannot return, because he came here prepared. Takumu said that he can do whatever he wants, but said that he will not help him. The main thing is that he does not die. And if she is here, then he definitely won't die. Hiro confirmed that his knight was very wonderful. Suddenly, Takumu said that he already knew that Hiro and Agatha were fighting. He found out surprisingly quickly. After all, only a few hours had passed. Apparently, it was Agatha who said that they were collaborating with him, distracting Takumu's attention. Takumu told him not to do anything unnecessary. This kingdom should not be rich until the right time comes. Hiro immediately thought about the fact that until the neighboring country attacks them, at the moment they are not being captured only because there is no value in their kingdom. They had a rich land and the population was much larger. The kingdom was captured by a neighboring country. The last remaining territory is adjacent to the Devil's Forest. If there is anything valuable in this territory, then the militant neighboring countries will definitely take it away. Hiro told his brother that at the right time he was going to take back the captured lands, but they had different military strengths, and even if he took back the land, they would not be able to defend it. Takumu's brother wants to take back the land that provided the kingdom with much of its food. If those lands are returned, food and population will increase, and most of the kingdom's problems will be solved. The problem is retaliation after the land is reclaimed. You can't win a head-on war with a country with twice the population. But Takumu likely has a card that can win in the short term, rather than a completely doomed plan. Now he is simply gathering strength, and will definitely carry out his plan, unless they do something extra. But if the enemy finds out and attacks before he makes a decision, it will all be over. This is a warning. If they interfere with him, he will not care that they are his brothers. Only he can help the kingdom. Then there will be their work with Agate. There he will not be able to help in any way. They are smart and strange guys, but they are necessary for the kingdom, so he won't kill them. They were a little tense, but after a while, they began to leave. Hiro let out a breath as they walked further away. This is a warning. If he does this often, he will definitely die, but he is not going to let go of his hands. Thinking that the only way to make a kingdom rich is to win a war is, in a sense, correct. Brother Agata knows what Brother Takumu is going to do, so he is on guard. The chances of defeating the neighboring countries are low, and they will not be able to continue winning. He knows this and thinks that if he leaves everything to Takuma, they will die. That's why he didn't offer to help the one he hated, even if he was going to stop him. Agatha and Takumu are going to save the kingdom in different ways. He wants to become a vassal of a strong country so that it will protect them from neighboring countries. From Agatha's point of view, nothing can be done about the obstacle in the form of Takumu. It's ironic that two brothers are at odds with each other and are trying to save the kingdom in their own way, although their desires coincide. Then he noticed that Hibana had become somewhat quiet. She knew at first sight that he was powerful, but it was a different matter when he was armed and on the battlefield. Hiro understood her. After all, he was the strongest man in the kingdom. Maybe he can even defeat a knight from the Golden Order if they have the same weapons. Hiro asked if it was true. Although it was strong, it was not to that extent. If he actually plans to kill Hiro, Hibana will have to fight him. and he asked if she could defeat him. She said he would wait 3 minutes. Hiro understood everything. They will avoid a violent confrontation with his brother. If there is a collision, she will give him time to escape. It was very much like a hint at how he would die. If there was a way to avoid conflict, he wanted to avoid it. He will need Brother Agatha to spread his inventions. He will need Brother Takumu and his army after the inventions spread, and their kingdom becomes rich. He wants to provide his brother's army with powerful weapons made through alchemy. And I also want to return the captured lands. They will have the military power to take back and protect the lands. He wants the power of Takumu and his army. His brothers are wonderful and willful, but difficult to communicate with. Hibana noticed that the sun's rays hardly reached here. Finally, they started looking for monsters. Due to Takumu's brother's appearance, they were interrupted on the same topic, and she reminded him of what he wanted to tell about the second reason. Hiro remembered this, and still decided to tell the second reason for this trip. The second reason is salt. Hibana was surprised when she heard about salt. She asked if he was talking about the salt that was in the Devil's Forest in the Rocky Mine. But Hiro said that, in fact, there is a sea behind the forest. He saw it on the map of the Great Alchemist. Hibana was surprised when she heard about the sea. For her, it was cool. If this map is true, then they will be able to get as much salt as they want. In the neighboring kingdoms, there is only rock salt. And they will be able to enter a new market. Everything was correct, so they need to think not about whether the sea really exists, but about the fact that it is definitely there, and how to build a safe road, because this is important. Not only are there dangerous monsters in this forest, but the roads here are terrible. This forest is dangerous even for ordinary soldiers, so he built a compass. He added a magic arrow to this compass and wants to combine the search with testing this compass. It determines the current location thanks to these 2 stones, which point in the same direction. He is glad that he was able to verify that the regular compass does not work. Then Hibana is calm and does not want to think about troubles. After all, she's afraid of monsters, she said jokingly. And just as they remembered about the monster, she heard some noise. She noticed, after all, it was a great chance. Hiro told Hibana to watch his fight and not help him. Hibana agreed. Even though she was his protector, she needed to know about his abilities. He began to transform the mithril. Mithril turned into a bow. He then began to transform gunpowder and created the explosive arrow Red Lotus. He completed the 5th form transformation and created the magic bow. Hibana was surprised that he created a bow from mithril and an arrow from gunpowder. But that was not all. He started using analysis. He added magical vision to his own right eye. This spell gives a boost to the eye's insight. If you invest magic, you can gain the ability to predict and see through a creature. He had an X-ray. He saw the structure of the monster's muscles, the center of gravity, and sees the following movements. Then he decided to add some wind, and he fired his explosive arrow from his bow. The monster had already jumped on him, but the arrow managed to hit his head, and a second later, the monster exploded. Hibana realized that Hiro had predicted where the monster would jump and blew it up. He sealed the magic power, and in one blow, this power reacted to the gunpowder. It was a very tenacious monster. If he didn't do this, they would have no chance of winning. Suddenly, Hiro heard rustling sounds from behind him again. He then transformed the bow into its 2nd form, the magic spear. She was surprised that Hiro was not a swordsman. He said that he was an alchemist and could use everything he made. Bow for long range, spear for medium range, a sword for close range, and if they get too close, there is a knife for protection, a shield. For a strong blow, he uses a hammer. It was the weapon of 1,000 faces. Mithril magic transformation. It was cool, but Hibana thought it was against the rules for him to use a weapon that could change. But if he only has one type of weapon, he won't get far from your sword and he will become a burden, so Hibana pushed him aside. She stood right in front of the bear monster, and she struck with her sword, cutting off his paw. Then she swung her sword at the bear's leg, and she made another dash straight forward towards him, and cut his head off. That you can cut off his limbs with one blow. This is very cool. He and Hiro had different values, and it's still not bad. He didn't even have time to breathe. After all, she had a beautiful sword technique. And he asked if all the people in the Principality of Kinar were monsters like her. She reminded him that they had 8 more people who were stronger than her. And yet, they are a threat to them. She asked why he thought so, since they were not at odds with each other. This is so now, today's kingdom of Cardosa is of no interest to them. But when he enriches this kingdom, it will be a completely different story. They can destroy Cardosa while it is weak, and take away all his inventions. Therefore, strengthening the kingdom is as important as enriching it, which is why he wants the landmark. A kingdom so strong that it can defeat the Principality of Kinar. If they can become like that, they will not lose to anyone. As expected of a prince, he thinks about such things. And she asked if we could take these claws for them. They are quite sharp. For this occasion, he has a special miasma bag. If it weren't for him, the miasma could have killed them. Hibana asked if they needed to treat them. Hiro said that to do this, they need magic, and he wants to save it for more necessary things in this forest. In short, he can't. In the end, she easily lifted 30 kilograms and was ready to go. Hiro hasn't finished exploring this forest yet, so Hibana would like them to encounter a stronger monster. He asked if she knew that that bear was called a blade bear. They say that anyone who meets it will die because it has an A-rank danger. An extremely dangerous monster. And Hibana was much stronger than him. Hiro realized that as long as Hibana was with him, they definitely couldn't kill him. She was a very reliable knight. Finally, they came to the sea. There was a salty smell in the air, the sound of waves. Hibana didn't even believe at first that they had reached the sea. Hiro was immediately inspired when he saw the sea. That is, salt. If they can bring salt from here, they can earn money from neighboring countries. He rubbed his eyes. It took half a day to get here and it was worth it, and he asked Hibana how much more she could carry. She's currently carrying about 50 kilograms of monster material, so she can take the same amount more. She asked if he was asking this to find out if she had been able to save him, since she couldn't put too much pressure on herself. Then they will take 100 kilograms of salt. He will take half himself. Hibana asked if he really had to take so much at once, since they had already found the sea. He explained that if they took 100 kilograms at once, it would be a good gift for the kingdom. The annual consumption of salt per person is approximately 1.5 kilograms. 1,000 people need 1.5 tons of salt. So if they bring 100 kilograms of salt 15 times, they will be able to replenish the annual supply of salt of the kingdom. To make things less troublesome, he'll be a little reckless. He hoped that he would be able to collect the salt by the end of the day. He suggested starting to make salt. Hibana asked if there was anything she could do to help, and he said later. Then she decided to go fishing while she waited, and immediately took off her clothes. Hiro wondered if she wasn't ashamed. She caught a fish to eat very quickly. The water was nice and she asked him if he would like to swim. He was going to do it after he had done what he had come for. Then he prepared to cast a spell. Hiro then moved the water aside and he created a glass pool out of sand. She was surprised that he did it, and I thought how many days it would have taken if they had made the pool the usual way. Hiro stared at Hibana's body in a swimsuit. But it's too early to be surprised, he said to himself. He'll make a hose out of his intestines. Not the most pleasant sight. Then he will fill the pool with water. The water began to flow by itself. Hibana asked if this was also magic, but it was ordinary science. Here, everything is based on the siphon principle. Water flows from the sea with a high water level into a pool with a low water level. It then converts the seawater into salt. It's all alchemy, and it doesn't take much magic, she asked. He said they couldn't wait for the water to dry up on its own, so there was nothing they could do about it. All the water evaporated, and only salt remained. They got salt, which was really cool for Hibana. But then Hiro started adding water again. The salt content of seawater is only 4%, and he knows how much water he needs to add to completely fill the pool. Therefore, it will be more efficient to collect salt by increasing its concentration and quantity. He started repeating this many times. As he thought, it was difficult to release so much magic so many times. Suddenly, Hibana began to wipe the sweat from his forehead. Then she gave him some water. And she said that he shouldn't strain himself so much. If he suddenly felt ill, then she advised him to rest. But Hiro will be finished very soon. If they don't collect it now, all the effectiveness will be lost. And he asked Hibana to help him collect salt. This bag is also made through alchemy. It can stretch a lot. Hibana cut the log into planks, and with the help of the planks, they began to collect salt. She asked if salt was really that easy to make. If you do everything yourself, without alchemy, it will take at least a week. She wondered how much training it would take to increase her magical power that much. But it was just luck that Hiro was born with so much magical power. It's just a miracle that he has so much magic. And there is a respondent. The more magic the respondent pours in, the more information can be obtained. He is the only one who can use it to its full potential. Hibana was even a little envious and asked why he didn't collect all the salt with magic. They would be heading back to the Devil's Forest, and he thought his magic might not be enough. so he apologized for having to work with his hands. She understood everything and took it as another training session. It would be a great training session, carrying bags and walking through the forest. By the way, she heard something here. The prince was some kind of strange. He built new roads together with the peasants. He understood and said that he was quite a strange person. Hearing this, she thought, what a great guy he is. Maybe she can do the same. Training your body and helping people at the same time is just great. He felt embarrassed that this had even reached her, but at the same time he was glad. Then he decided to glorify her as a heroine. He knew that there was a sea here, and that salt could be made, but he did nothing. He couldn't pass through the devil's forest alone. But she went with him, and now they can give people salt. And he thanked her for her help. It embarrassed her a little, but she was happy. And she thanked him too. She is glad that she became his knight, because he will actually be able to save this kingdom. They decided to go back home and bring salt to the people. By the time they walked, it had already gotten dark. Hibana began to see barricades ahead. Apparently she still has a lot of strength in her, but in fact they had been walking for a long time, so even she was tired. She could walk even in the moonlight because she was trained enough. And Hiro could walk because he used magical vision. Then she noticed that they hardly encountered any monsters along the way. It's because he used that perfume. Hiro's new invention. She thought that their sweat smell had disappeared. It's the most hated smell for monsters. But this is just a trial sample, but it seems to have already produced results. She asked if it wouldn't be much easier if used while traveling. Now he used it because he decided to check what kind of monsters were here. If he could, he would not want to use these spirits. But because of things and fatigue, it is dangerous not to do so. There are 11 types of monsters living in the forest. Now, these perfumes don't work on 3 types. There are monsters here for whom this smell is not disgusting, and who have no sense of smell. He learned a lot. He wants ordinary soldiers to be able to safely pass through this forest using spirits. And this was also the purpose of the test. Hibana understood everything he explained. He found out about monsters, tested the compass, found the sea, made salt, tested the perfume. Today was a hard day. But perhaps the most important thing is about to begin. Hibana was about to ask what he meant when suddenly the guards called out to Prince Hiro. They were very worried because they had been gone for a long time. He apologized for asking at such a time, but he really needed to go to the castle urgently because the brothers were definitely not sleeping at this time. The man who wants to save this country can't wait until tomorrow, so he asked them to tell Takumu and Agat that he has salt. Takumu and Agatha stood with the guards in the room, and in the center lay bags of salt. At that moment, Hiro walked in with Hibana, who greeted them. He called them, but he himself arrived late, complained Agatha. Hiro apologized. It was because they were dirty and needed to change. He asked if salt had anything to do with it. They were clearly concerned that he had found salt. Here, everyone has their own dream. The first prince, Hakumu Cardosa, is a warrior, the strongest man in the kingdom, and his goal is to save the kingdom by force, and to take back the rich land stolen by the neighboring kingdoms and the people living on it. The second prince, Agatha Cardosa, is very smart and calculating. His goal is to save the kingdom through diplomacy. He wants the kingdom to become a vassal of another powerful country. And he, Hiro Cardosa, is as good as his brothers. The third prince's position is a spare brother. Until now, he could do whatever he wanted, but he grabbed the chance to give salt to the people, so today he will fight for his dream. Takumu decided not to drag it out too much, and asked him directly where he got the salt from. Hiro said that there was a sea beyond the Devil's Forest, where he built a pool and evaporated the salt. He asked if it was true. How many people died because of salt? Because of the salt, they are commanded by the neighboring country. They sell treasures to buy salt. If they don't have enough, they get rid of food. That's why their people die of hunger. Their kingdom is in dire need of salt. The lie about salt is nothing more than a mockery of those who shed tears. So Hiro said he wasn't rotten enough to lie about salt. Takumu understood everything and praised him for it. To ask a man who has his sights set on becoming the next king to acknowledge his achievements is a bad move. It's not what he expected, but now is the time to ask him. He then approached Takumu with one request. Together with Hibana, they can pass through the Devil's Forest, but no one except them can do this. If something happens to them, they will not be able to deliver the salt, and they cannot be left without it. He asked him for his army. Takumu agreed without any problems. Tomorrow he would select his best fighters and send them, and he would also see them off. Hiro was glad that Takumu was coming too, and he could show him how to make salt. He can count on soldiers trained personally by his brother. It's even good that they didn't ask him about anything. When suddenly Agatha asked if they were out of their minds, this was the Devil's Forest, where it was very easy to get lost. Did they at least think about what would happen if dangerous monsters attacked them? Their kingdom was on the brink. They couldn't let their soldiers die in vain. Unlike Takuma's reaction, he understands this easily. He has achieved great results. Takuma wants to organize a stable supply of salt. Agatha is not interested in this, but he needs to be convinced. Otherwise, there will be a lot of problems. Hiro told him to calm down. That's why he created magical devices. A magic compass that can find the way back. With it, they will not get lost, and if you use these spirits, then 3 types of monsters out of 11 will not approach them. The best squads will probably be able to handle the remaining 3 types. He has prepared information about the monsters and their weaknesses. But he doesn't know what to do with the new types of monsters. He can't do anything about it yet. Takuma agreed with Hiro, because he and his knight had gone the whole way together, and they had confirmed the functionality of the compass and the spirits. Besides, couldn't his army do what Hiro could do? Takuma asked. If that's what Agatha meant, he'll take it as an insult. Agatha then said that there was no guarantee that Hiro was telling the truth. Then Takuma pointed out to him the huge amount of salt that Hiro brought, and Agatha still doubts that there is a sea beyond this devilish forest. They will be able to save their subjects. Then Agatha agreed after hearing all this. He knows that getting salt is a high priority, but I decided to ask Hiro how he knew that there was a sea behind the forest. He can't go to such a dangerous place without being sure that he has explored everything since he found this sea. He must have a reason for such confidence, especially how he was able to create so much salt in one day. Why did he make tools for traveling through the forest? This is all for a reason. He was always incredible and scary. But this is too much. He asked Hiro to explain himself, or he wouldn't believe him. This time, Takuma agreed with Agatha. But Hiro couldn't tell, because there were too many people here to talk, and he asked them to release the guards. That was his condition. After some time, they were left alone. Even though there was a guard outside the door, he still felt uneasy. One day, his father told him that he was adopted. I wonder if they see him as a little brother. He's afraid of the power they show. And not only that, they and their brothers have different understandings of saving their kingdom. They understand that. Although they are brothers, they are each other's enemies. But for his wish to come true, they need the power of these two. It would be a mistake to hide his power from them, which may still be needed, so he will reveal his secret. The brothers want to save the kingdom. If they are sure that his help will save the kingdom, then he will support them. He believes in the brothers' love for their kingdom. That's why he must convince them that this power will help them. He said that he received the inheritance of an alchemist and mastered alchemy. He created tools with alchemy and learned about the sea from a map that was in this inheritance. Hearing this, they could now expel him from the kingdom, and he wondered what they would do. Takuma asked if Hiro understood that alchemy was forbidden by the church. He won't get off with just death now, but he will still save the kingdom with alchemy. If nothing is done, it will die. They must understand this. Individually, they are fighting a battle with no chance of winning. Takuma and Agatha thought about it. They clearly can't ignore it. Then he asked Takuma. He wants to gather a squad of soldiers with magical weapons and attack neighboring countries. Hiro understood this too. Good observation. His solution to close that gap in strength is to use magic swords. If the elite soldiers are armed with powerful magic weapons, they will definitely become the strongest around, and he will be able to take back the lands that were stolen from them. This is what he dreams about. Although they are poorly equipped, their troops are strong because they spend a lot of time fighting monsters. And while they may not be at odds with Kinara, they still have elite troops that are more than a match for their Golden Knights. But they still lack military power. But there was no future for this. The miasma from the magic swords would literally eat them up. Even if he gained a temporary victory, he would have wasted the elite soldiers. What follows will be a terrifying breakdown of power and brutal retribution. And he also turned to Agatha, whether he would really ask other strong countries for protection, whether he wanted to save the country by selling it. It turns out that Hiro found out everything even about him. Agatha said that there was no other way to save their kingdom. It was better than what the idiot Jock was proposing. But Hiro didn't think it would change anything. The kingdom had already given away its sister, and thus extended its existence, and in order to save itself, what does he propose to do next? They have nothing. That's what it means to belong to someone. Diplomacy is needed to prevent this from happening, said Agatha. He might be able to handle it, but Hiro sees his limits. All he does is prolong their lives. but they can't save the kingdom that way. So he refuses all their plans. And since he refuses, is Hiro really going to save them with alchemy? He will show them another way out, so he said that they got more than just salt. And he asked Hibana to show him the power of alchemy. She opened the door and told them to come in. A girl entered the room with something in her hands. The guard was about to throw her out, but Takumu told him to let her in. The girl opened the rag, under which there was bread. It was white bread. Takumu immediately asked if they really grew wheat in Cardosa. This couldn't be, and Agatha even thought that he bought it. But it was the power of alchemy that the bread was baked from the wheat grown in their kingdom. The monster's body makes good fertilizer, and this wheat can withstand cold and disease, and it grows in 3 months. If they don't believe it, Hiro could lead them to the fields. With alchemy, he can do even more. And then Hiro suggested that they try it, and he added that he didn't put anything in it. Takumu took the bread and bit off a piece. The bread was delicious. Very delicious. He never thought that their kingdom could have such delicious bread. Wheat is not only easy to grow, but also tastes good. Much tastier than in other countries. Alchemy can do that too. Hiro said that alchemy not only makes life richer, and asked Hibana to pass the sword to her brother. Hibana agreed, but only if they returned it later. Takumu looked at the sword with amazement. A sword that has no miasma, this sword can't be compared to their swords. This one is much stronger. As expected, Takumu understood everything at first glance. And it's all alchemy. Hiro can remove all the miasma from the magic swords of his squad. Although no, he will make them even better. He will make swords that will surpass them. And he decided to say once again that he was rejecting Takumu's idea of war and Agatha's idea of a colony. He will make this kingdom rich through alchemy. They have salt, wheat, swords. He will show them a rich kingdom that can defend itself from other countries. With all this, they will be able to protect themselves, and he wants to do more than just protect. Their subjects have suffered enough, and they too have the right to be happy. He is not satisfied with the elimination of hunger. His goal is to make the kingdom prosperous. Takumu and Agatha looked at him, and then they laughed loudly together. What Takumu would do to his knights, giving up their lives, would be far worse than his younger brother's alchemy. Agatha agreed with this. They would simply be wasting their lives in vain. And they said that Hiro was even right. What they were trying to do was just a delay. They would not be able to achieve the prosperity of the kingdom. They knew it deep in their hearts, but they didn't want to give up. But how he wanted to save the kingdom, it's strange. He should be happy that the kingdom will be saved. But he was bitter. Even though he's laughing, it's obvious he's sad, Hiro thought. He revealed his secret to them because he saw how they wanted to save the kingdom. The form is different, but the meaning is the same. And he asked them not to say that he could handle it alone, or that everything they did was pointless. He had one request for them. He wanted them to help him. He can make this country rich, but he can't command everything and fight like Takumi. And he will not be able to inspire people and negotiate with neighboring countries. Alchemy can only make convenient things, but it won't work like that. If you use it incorrectly, then nothing will work. He needs their power. So he says he wants to use both of them. Agatha called him stupid. Does he really think that they will just go with him? But no, he means for them to use it. He believes in them, in their strength and intelligence. If they unite, they can save their kingdom. He can work in the shadows, but he needs them to be with him. And let them decide for themselves who will become the next king. Takumu and Agatha exchanged glances. These words of Hiro, this is what he really means. There's nothing to be done about it. If his younger brother says something like that, then he can't, like a child, remain silent. He will now have Takumu's army with him, and he will act as a general, not a prince. Agatha also decided to help Hiro, even if he was inferior to him in abilities, or he just accidentally received the alchemist's legacy. He did not want to follow him. But if their ship was sinking, then he had no choice but to help him. He will help him and become a minister. Hiro asked what they meant. Takumu explained that he had abdicated the throne in his favor. Agatha did it too, because it would be better for the kingdom. In other words, they would recognize him. They will keep quiet about alchemy. As long as he believes in himself, he will be able to save their kingdom, and they will help him. These are the kind of brothers he has, and they asked him if he believed him. If he tells them whether they are telling the truth, they will take it as an insult. He then asked them to help him. They happily told him to rely on them. This is the first time that the three princes of Cardosa have united. This is definitely a beginning, but not of saving the kingdom of Cardosa, but of prosperity. He was sure that if they united, nothing was impossible for them, but such confidence was groundless. Morning came and Hiro woke up with a wide yawn. Apparently he was tired after negotiations with his brothers, and he didn't like it very much. He heard a voice from behind asking if he was going the right way. It was Takumu's squad and himself, who, having collected their equipment, were heading towards the sea. It was good that they all united after all. He was told to practice alchemy to enrich the kingdom, to take care of the army, and also to pay attention to domestic politics and negotiate with other countries, but he could not do all of this. He can confidently entrust his brothers with matters in which they are strong. But there was one problem. Because his brothers renounced the throne, he automatically became the next king. Agatha took on the usual work. But there is still work that requires only a king. Hibana said that yesterday was cool, as expected from a prince, although now she has to call him king. But he asked her to just call him Hiro. That's what he wants her to call him. Hibana agreed to this. And she remembered that since she returned, she had never seen the king. Hiro said that his father is sick now and has been in a coma for several years now. Takumu was supposed to be acting king temporarily, but since his elder brothers have renounced the throne, he will now be acting king. Since there is a possibility that the father will wake up, it is impossible to arbitrarily choose a king, so one of the reasons for instability in the kingdom is the regency. Hibana understood everything and wished him luck. Hiro asked him to stop talking like she was a stranger. If he is very busy, then she will be busy too, because depending on further events, they may send an assassin. She agreed with this and decided that she needed to train more and become stronger. She doesn't know what to do with a sparring partner. If she trains alone, then she definitely won't be able to jump above her own head. And she asked if he knew anyone strong. Hiro suggested that she ask Takuma about it. He is also looking for a sparring partner now. Suddenly, Hibana asked if Hiro would win if he used alchemy. He said that if he used a good weapon with magical transformation, his brother would still break it. He is unusual, strong, and skilled, that's what he is. And he added that she wasn't fit to hold a candle to him. It was pretty straightforward of him. Takumu is a military genius. He is good at military strategy, but most importantly in his personal combat power. When a skirmish with a neighboring country occurred, he noticed a 5-fold difference in strength. When Hiro says that she is not fit to hold a candle to someone, she can't help but challenge him even more. She has changed after all. Hibana had one more question. She asked who baked that bread. She knew that wheat was cool, but to make such delicious bread from it, you definitely need to know something. Hiro said that this was his secret employee, and he would introduce her to it later. She was confused that the secret agent was a girl. Hiro immediately said that there was nothing between them. Suddenly, Takumu approached Hiro and spoke, and he asked if they had lost their way. According to the compass, they are on the right track. For a second, Hibana even thought it was a bear. The soldiers walked further and further. Hiro thought that today they would only come to the sea, look around, and leave. But Takumu said that they would set up camp near the sea. To make salt, it would take strength and time. And it wasn't just about the knights. He was going to recruit people for the escort. It was a good idea. The kingdom had about 50 unemployed knights. The remaining knights work in the royal fields and have no time to train. Instead of sending valuable specialized knights to mine salt, it would be more efficient to build a base and accompany the real miners to the sea. Takumu asked if he could build a road with his own strength. There are too many trees and grass here, and it's hard to walk. And there are a lot of blind spots, so you have to be very careful to defend yourself. It is not even clear how many years it will take to build a road in the Devil's Forest. If you think about it, they need the road not only for transporting salt. People will need good food, and someday a port will need to be built for fishing. Based on this, the road is vitally important. A road that large carts can travel along with ship cargo, it would be good to make it safe. But in order to build a road, they need to fight off monsters, cut down trees, and prepare areas for the road, which is about 20 kilometers. Hiro wondered how much strength he would need to work without getting tired. There was no end in sight, and it was too dangerous. How suddenly he decided to admit that they were wrong. Why did they have to go through the Devil's Forest? They just wanted the road to the sea, a safer road. He's saying something strange again, Takumu thought, but Hibana was already used to it. And Hiro said he would do something before winter. There are only 3 months left, and he promised that he will definitely do everything. Hibana had a bad feeling about this, because she knew he was up to something. He is looking forward to it. Finally, the soldiers arrived at the sea. Everyone was just lit up, because there really was a sea here. The sun had already begun to set, and they had walked here for a long time because of the number of people. It was great that they would not be spending the night in the Devil's Forest. The soldiers suddenly shouted loudly that they were seeing the sea for the first time, and that it smelled of salt. The best soldiers behave just like little children. Once they set up camp, everyone will be free. The soldiers chatted. They were more interested in food, especially the fish in this sea. They finally began to set up camp. They install everything quite briskly. And all because they are all excited about the sea. Takumu invited Hiro and Hibana to go fishing with him. I don't really want to eat canned food, but they have the sea nearby, and you can eat something tasty. The 3 of them were already sitting on the cliff with fishing rods. Hiro caught a fish on his fishing rod. There were no people here, and the fish were careless and very easy to catch. She asked if this fish could be eaten. Hiro said that unless the poison is removed, it cannot be done. Takumu wouldn't even mind eating such a fish if it had a very weak poison. They used simple baits, and the fish bite. Takumu then turned to Hiro. He abdicated the throne in his favor. And it seems that not all of his subordinates have accepted this yet. Takumu was right. Everyone admires his strength. They never thought they would obey Hiro. But there was nothing he could do about it. Soldiers will not hear words, they need to be shown force. Hiro asked what he needed to do, while he couldn't challenge Takuma to a duel. Then suddenly, Takumu said that it was a pretty good idea. At this rate, he would never see a prosperous kingdom, and it was impossible for him to defeat Takuma. Even if they decide to collude, they will be immediately exposed, because he has already trained them. He had a proposal. Personal knights could fight in royal duels. That means he can defeat Takuma. The power of a personal knight is the power of a king. Hibana immediately said that she was weaker than Takumu. He confirmed this, and added that he would train her. He was going to do it anyway. After all, they need Hiro, who can endure everything. But his personal knight can't be weak. It would be good for Hibana to train with Takumu and surpass him. He asked if she regretted it. She said no, because she had no right to regret they had such a difference in strength. She is rather happy, and will definitely become stronger. It was a good answer, but it would take time to get stronger, and Takumu couldn't wait. Therefore, the duel will be in a week, and if she fails, then Hiro will help with a weapon made by alchemy. The 2 of them will be able to defeat him, and he will be accepted as a strong king. Hiro happily accepted his offer, and Hibana didn't mind either. Then everything is decided, but he has to say one more thing as a test for Hiro. He mentioned that he would make the kingdom stronger with alchemy. If he didn't show him that this girl could defeat him, he wouldn't believe in his alchemy. And he asked me to remember this well. He said everything correctly. Hiro was going to do everything and show him. The soldier came and reported that they had finished pitching the tents, and they could start cooking dinner. Defeating Takuma sounds like a miracle. He used to say that it would be enough to hold out against his brother for only 3 minutes, meaning that they had 0 chances of winning, so all that was left was to buy time. She will train with her brother, but it is impossible to eliminate the difference in their strength in this week. Hibana said he was kind of depressed. Isn't that interesting? After all, for an alchemist like him, nothing is uninteresting. He wondered what he could do that could surpass his brother, what weapon he could make that would cover this terrible difference. He was really burning up about it. Night fell and the soldiers sat by the fire and cooked fish. They were supposed to work according to plan, so tomorrow morning they would clear the beach and start making a salt field. Hiro also wrote down how to make the tool and asked them to follow the instructions. Tomorrow he and his brother Takumu would be gone and they would be left alone. There is some distance between him and his brother's soldiers. Hibana asked if he would use the pool. Hiro replied that salt needed to be mined without magic, so that people who don't use magic could mine salt themselves. And they still returned to the beginning. A lot of work was added. But Hiro still thought it was necessary. After all, her brother said that if she didn't win, he wouldn't say that alchemy could save the kingdom. If they don't have such a big difference in power with other countries, then they can do everything. Originally, weapons were made for the weak. The most ideal weapon is one that anyone can use and kill anyone. Previously, it was assumed that if a country is rich, then there will be someone who will attack it, so they prepare powerful weapons. First, you need to reduce the enemy's strength, and Takumu, with his incredible strength and knights, will deliver the final blow. This is his main tactic. Hibana is certainly grateful for making a powerful weapon, but she wants to defeat him with her own strength. Hiro also wanted her to surpass her brother. Not necessarily in a duel. After it, she will continue to train and someday surpass him. She promised him this. She didn't know how long it would take, but she would become the strongest. If it doesn't, then it won't be worthy. She wants to be worthy of Hiro. They looked at each other for a while. And Yuno turned away, saying that it was good that she had such confidence. The atmosphere was a bit strange. Hibana asked what he had come up with. He wanted to build a road between the sea and the kingdom, but there were only 3 months left, and Hibana didn't think it was possible. But Hiro was sure that he could, because he only says what he can do. So she needed to come up with a good plan. She would find time for it later, but first, she needed to make the weapon this week. But that's not quite true. Tomorrow morning he finished the plan for the road, and after that he will start building it, and during the construction he will think about its weapons. During the day he will build a road and think about weapons, and in the evening he will start making a prototype of the weapon. That is, morning, preparation for work, afternoon, building a road and thinking about weapons, evening, making a prototype of the weapon and training Hibana. It's pretty much him, but that's his strong point. He comes up with a plan in his head, and then writes the plan down and thinks through the details. Tomorrow they would return to the castle and would have to work straight away, so he asked Hibana for help. He tells her his plan after they go through the Devil's Forest again, and thinks it will be good training. He surprises her every time. So they decided to try their best. It was midday the next day, and they were near the beginning of the Devil's Forest. They arrived at their destination. All the paperwork was dumped on Agate, and now they will start building the road. Hibana asked if they would like to come in, since they were near the entrance to the forest. They were having trouble cutting down the Devil's Forest. If they couldn't get through the forest, they would have to go through here. Then he hit the ground with force using his palm. Since it didn't want to go through the forest, then it didn't have to. What he will build would be more correctly called a non-road. He was building a tunnel. It was even crazier than building a road. But this was not the case, and Hiro asked her to come over. Alchemy is the manipulation of matter. Sand and earth are especially good. The harder you dig the earth, the deeper the hole becomes, and he digs at an angle so that the cart can move without problems, and when they reach a certain depth he will start to walk horizontally, making a path to the sea. By making a tunnel, they don't have to worry about trees and monsters, and on yesterday's hike he discovered that there is no underground water here. True, he didn't know if there were underground monsters here, but when they appeared, then he would worry. Hibana couldn't believe that he was building tunnels using alchemy, even though she could see it right now. Hiro told her to believe or to trust, but he still does it, and this time he will do more. Hibane was also scared about the ceiling, in case it collapsed, but Hiro said that if you hit the wall, it would be very hard due to the compression of the earth by alchemy. It cannot be compared to brick, it is very strong and does not let water through, so it will not collapse. When this road is built, everyone will be able to walk safely from the city to the sea. They will be able not only to produce salt, but also to fish. Due to overfishing in the lake near the kingdom, it has become almost impossible to catch fish, but if you fish in the sea, the food will become richer and the people will be happier. Hibana looked at his happy face and couldn't wait for this day. And yet she noticed how much magical power was spent. She would have fainted long ago. Hiro reminded her that he was born this way, but she needs to know that it is hard for him too. Carts with 2 horses should be able to pass through freely. This is the minimum requirement for the tunnel, so the width is 8 meters, and the height is 3.5 meters. This tunnel requires quite a lot of magic power, Hibana asked if there was anything she could help him with. Then Hiro asked her to clean up the dirt and rocks. There is a limit to the compression of the earth, and one would like to avoid the accumulation of residual soil and rocks. It was good for her. Strength work was just right for her. To avoid being dead tired before the evening workout, Hiro advised working without straining yourself. But she refused and said that she would work as hard as she could. She wants to get stronger, and this is another workout. Having accepted this, he only told her to be careful, and thought that he would have to insure her if she suddenly became ill. Then they started working on the song. It all depended on his strength, and he was curious to see how long it would last. While Hiro was making the tunnel, Hibana was collecting the remaining earth and stone in a cart and taking it back. Quite a while had passed, but they were still doing it. And after some time, they finally got tired. They decided to finish for today. If they continued further, they would not have enough strength for the evening work. They had covered 600 meters of the 20 kilometers, more than he thought. Even Hibana was very tired. But thanks to her, he was able to focus only on making the tunnel, so he thanked her for her help. She noticed something here. After a day of hauling earth, you get very tired, because the further they dig, the greater the distance to remove excess earth. She considered it a pretty good workout for muscles and endurance. At their pace, they can finish in about a month. They need to finish in 3 months, which is very good. But Hiro is counting on 2 months. They won't stop at just digging a tunnel. She asked what else he wanted to do. First, you need to check and strengthen the wall. It will not allow it to collapse. Once this is done, you will need a device that does not allow water to pass through, and if water does appear, you will need a drain. Light will also be needed here. And a device for fresh air circulation. And to do all this, it will take more than 2 months. A lot needs to be done. He plans to create many excellent things, but she decided to ask if it was necessary to do all this. Hiro said that they need the road not only for transporting salt, but in itself it will be very useful and necessary. And then he had something else. He pointed out that she looked tired since she had training with her brother in the evening. She stood up abruptly and said that she was not tired at all and that she still had plenty of strength, but her whole body was shaking, which indicated that she was definitely not okay. Then Hiro asked her to open her mouth, and he took out a small pill. He brought it to Hibana's mouth and told her not to spit it out. And he threw it into her mouth. Hibana immediately felt sick from the taste of this pill. A moment later, she was already lying on the ground as if dead. She asked what he was doing. It tasted the worst in the world. And she asked him not to laugh about it. Hiro apologized and asked how she was feeling and if she felt better. Then she tried to jump and move. Her body became very light, which surprised her very much, and she asked if there really were such pills that would remove fatigue. They were also made by Alchemy. The ingredients are very valuable. If you use too many pills, it will be too much of a burden on the body. They can't be used just like that, and the reason for this is a possible war. and he doesn't want to waste the supply. The medicine can return soldiers to combat readiness in a short time, which will be their salvation. Today's a special case if he doesn't see the difference between her and her brother, but he won't be able to make a normal weapon. If he's tired, he won't be able to train. Hibane felt sorry because she had already decided to work until she dropped and drink this medicine to quickly recover and go to training. She thanked him for such a valuable medicine. They decided to go back. But before leaving, Hibana wanted to ask him one more thing. She had one small request for him, and she asked if she could become his lover. Then she began to wait for his response to her request. Hero asked what she was talking about. She immediately said directly that she fell in love with him. That's why she decided to confess to him. She can't be his queen, but he can keep their relationship a secret, and she wouldn't say something like that just to make a man happy. He asked if she was telling the truth. Hibana had truly fallen in love with him back at that meeting, when he had the courage to go against two brothers. That's why she tells him this. She asked him what he would say to this. He then asked if Hibana had ever dated anyone. No, she hadn't met, but she believed that they could handle it. People are animals too. You just need to trust your instincts. They looked into each other's eyes for a while, and Hero turned around, asking her to give him time to think it over. She said that she would wait, because patience is one of the main advantages of swordsmen. After that, she took the cart and left. Hero wondered why she confessed so suddenly. Marriage for royal families is just a tool to strengthen relations with other countries. Hardly anyone would want to marry a poor country like theirs, so there are no problems. Hibana is strong, beautiful, smart, and there is something to talk about with her. Here's the thing, they need to get to know each other better. Soldiers were training in the yard. Hibana and Hero came to them and greeted everyone. They all had strange faces, but they didn't seem to be hated. Perhaps they just heard about their fight and are curious about Hibana's strength. They came to Takum. And first, he would like to see Hibana's strength, so she will fight Harold. She looked at Harold with her head tilted, and he asked if she wouldn't fight with him. Takumu said that it was dangerous to fight with him. If he didn't control his powers, he could accidentally kill. Hearing this, Hibana decided to show him her power. Hero wished her good luck in the fight. Harold asked Takumu if he really could let loose. He confirmed this because he knows approximately what she is capable of. But he is no longer interested in her. Hibana and Harold were already standing in the arena. Hero watched them, as did everyone else. Hibana asked what the rules were. Harold suggested that she use wooden swords, and they would fight until the first blow. She agreed to these conditions. Hero saw a lot of strength in Harold. He was sure that he was among the top 12 in the squad. If the magical power smoothly enveloped the body, then physical abilities could be enhanced. Takumu ordered them to prepare for battle. As soon as the fight began, the two of them immediately rushed forward. Hibana struck with her sword, but Harold managed to block it. She then began to hit him with numerous blows. She moved quite quickly. Hibana moved in a circle, squeezing Harold. He tensed a little under the pressure from her. Spectators praised her footwork and speed, while Harold was only defending himself. By spinning around Harold, she gives herself a good stance from which to attack. There was just one nuance. Harold is holding up well, deflecting attacks well, and you need to grab her with a blow. Harold's timing was perfect. How he suddenly threw her sword up. But Hibana even managed to defend herself from his blows. Harold is not inferior to Hibana's speed, and her tactics are also very tiring. Suddenly, Harold had already started to strike at her. But he missed. Hibana disappeared from his sight. She appeared above him and flew behind his back. When he landed on the ground, Harold was confused and took a direct hit from Hibana. Harold fell to the ground, and he acknowledged her victory, calling it quite strong. They thanked each other for the fight. Then Takumu addressed them, and he praised them for their fight. From his observations, Hibana was strong in her own way. She asked what it meant. Then he asked to borrow her sword. As he took her sword in his hands, he began to draw his own, and he gave it to Hiro and asked him to hold it firmly in front of him. He took it and held it, and asked what it was for. Takumu warned that he was coming. He tensed his leg and prepared to lunge forward. And with one swing, he cut through his own sword like butter. Hiro's heart literally sank to his feet. Takumu called this sword very good. His sword was good too, but now it's just trash. Hibana asked why he did that. Takumu was checking their weapons before the fight. If Hibana had lost during their battle, if they had fought with wooden swords, or if they had fought with real weapons, then this would have happened. She asked how much longer he would underestimate her. Did he really plan to win by taking her blow? He said he would win. If he couldn't, he wouldn't have said it. Hibana told him that she didn't need his favors. Takumu then told her to prove it to him by winning. If she did that, then the next fight would be no slouch. But only if she can. She took her sword from Takumu's hands. Hiro asked if she was sure she could handle it. She was confident that she would win. At first, she just wanted to see the difference in their strength, but now she wants to win. Apparently she was quite angry. Brother was acting quite provocatively. He didn't think that he was actually underestimating Hibana. Takumu and Hibana stood in the arena, and they announced that their battle had begun and lost dry. Very quickly, just in an instant. Hiro was wrong. He thought that Takumu's brother would go first and Hibana would just defend himself, but he did something different. He let Hibana attack first. Then he easily dodged and finished the fight with one blow. Maintaining the right distance and understanding the opponent's pace is the foundation of a swordsman. It was a victory not of speed or strength, but of skill. There was no plan from the start for the brother. It was just an overwhelming difference in strength. Takumu said that she has good physical fitness. She puts in enough effort, but she's just relying on her talent. He couldn't stand complacency. He thinks only about himself and does not see the enemy. There is a lack of observation, understanding, and foresight, so truly strong people cannot be defeated. At this point, he finished and told the soldiers to return to their posts. They began to disperse, and Takumu approached Hiro. And he said that Hibana is a good swordswoman, but that's no good. Her problem is that for her, there are only those who win and those who lose. He says that she thought it was natural to lose to him. She didn't really regret it. She wasn't interested in him. Therefore, she thought only of herself and lost. This is a fatal flaw. Hibana has never had a suitable opponent her age, and the Golden Knights are too far away. She doesn't know how to look at an opponent and suddenly attack. To fix this, she needs to feel the bitterness of defeat. I will definitely win. This is the best way to see the enemy from the other side. He is not only strong, but also guides people on the right path. It was good that they were on the same side. Hiro thanked him. After that, she will definitely become stronger. Takumu also had a request for Hiro, and he asked him to make him a sword, and if possible, use his broken sword as material. Hiro's sword, made with alchemy, was able to cut it. It was an important ritual for Takumu. Even though he used it like that, it doesn't matter. He wants to fight with it again if he can. Through this ritual, he was able to accept alchemy and move on. Hiro agreed to this. In gratitude for training with Hibana, he will make him a good sword. Normal metal has no history. If you cast enchantments, the compatibility will be bad, but Takumi's brother fought with his sword, so he should definitely have a combat history. Enchantment will definitely go well. He only asked him not to use the new sword against Hibana. This was exactly what Takumu had planned. He would test if they could surpass him. He put his hands on Hiro and left. Hibana was still sitting in the arena. Hiro came up behind her. Hibana lost. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. She lost in a crushing defeat. She had lost before, but never with such disappointment. Hearing this, Hiro suggested that she get rid of this resentment. She will definitely become stronger and will no longer be so clumsy. And Hiro believed in her. Then he suggested that she go home. During this fight, he understood what she needed. He would help her win. Hibana agreed with him. They came together to his workplace. She saw her difference with Takumu again. No matter how much she trained, she definitely wouldn't catch up with him in 1 week, and now she needed Hiro's strength. The word now, in her words, is proof that she is looking forward. She didn't need his consolation, so he decided to mind his own business. The two of them will defeat Takuma's brother. Hibana wasn't built to win today. Just finding out the difference between them brought enough results. Hiro is right, but he is much further away than she thought. Even with that disadvantageous position, unable to move her arms or legs, she is no longer so confident in herself. He asked why she was so timid. She herself said that she would not be like this anymore. She called him bad. He says nothing but nasty things. Hibana will definitely catch up with him, but it will still be impossible to defeat him in a week. No matter how many swords he made for her, she couldn't even stand up to him, and she thought about what to do. Hiro said that there was only one thing left for them to do. Upgrade everything except the sword. She asked what it meant. The lightness, sharpness, durability, destructive power of this sword is approximately equal to 4. The basis of her sword is lightness and sharpness. It cannot be made lighter, but the sharpness is sufficient. Her fighting style already has durability and destructive power, so there is no point in improving all of this. Therefore, he will create armor that improves reflexes and dynamic vision. Reflexes and dynamic vision will all be in armor, but due to the load on the body, the limit is only 3 minutes. This is more than enough for fighting swordsmen. And she asked how he would make such armor. Then Hiro took the responder doll, and he said that he would use electrical energy. Hibana was surprised to hear about electricity, and then she asked what it was. Hiro wondered if he could explain it at all. So I thought it would be faster to demonstrate it on her. She asked if it was something indecent. Hiro immediately said that it was never. And he began to think about what he should do. Then he decided to do something. Hibana thought it was clearly something indecent. And she told him not to be shy, because he can do whatever he wants. So he decided to show her and shook her hand. She was electrocuted, so she squealed loudly in surprise. Hiro laughed. She asked why he was laughing. He laughed because she just reacted unexpectedly sweetly. It turns out it was electricity. Hiro explained that there are nerves in the human body, and electricity runs through them. Muscles move thanks to electricity. Therefore, if you conduct electricity on purpose, the muscles will contract involuntarily, something like this, after which her hand rose by itself. Hibane was not very pleased that his hands moved on their own and asked if he really wanted to use such a tool. By manipulating the electricity in the brain, dynamic vision can be enhanced and reaction times can be improved by accelerating the transmission of signals to the muscles, which is exactly the effect he plans to create the armor with. Hibana agreed to this. She wants to use electricity in tomorrow's training, wants to get used to the armor, and thoroughly study Prince Takumu's movements. Once again, she is enthusiastic, but it will take about 2 days to create, so she will have to wait. She agreed to this, and then she asked why it had to do with obscenity. Still, she didn't forget about it. Each person's nerves transmit electrical signals differently, so you need to figure out how much electricity is needed. Therefore, it is necessary for the electricity to go directly to the skin. If clothes interfere, then the accuracy will decrease, and they will not be able to collect accurate data. Hibana understood everything and asked if it was possible to start receiving data after eating and taking a bath. Hiro wanted to know the reason for this. She said that she needs to prepare, she wants to be beautiful before meeting her loved one. After eating it was just fine, he said, because he said he wanted to meet someone. He promised to meet with someone who bakes delicious bread, so he invited her to come with him. She was interested in meeting the person Hiro liked. He asked her how she knew he liked this man. She replied that she understood from his voice. When he talks about it, he looks happier. She still didn't understand. She was so attentive. Then Hiro said that you could even say that he loved her. After all, she is an important link in saving the kingdom. Hiro was waiting for Hibana in the hall. Then she came and apologized for being late. She was in a hurry, so she put on casual clothes. Hiro asked what was wrong, it looked like her, and was effective, then asked what that smell was. Hibana used the perfume from the Principality of Kinar, today's special beast, so she decided to apply it. He asked if they weren't just going to have dinner and collect data. Hibana said no, because maybe Hiro would fail her today, but he immediately refused. She called him a coward. As they walked, she asked, "The royal family lives on this floor. They are going to meet a member of the royal family." She was surprised and asked if this was really his bride. He asked her what she was doing and told her to go into that room. Then he opened the door. They entered a room that looked like a library. This is the royal room. It used to be her father's office, but she turned it into her room. There was someone sitting on the stairs, and she closed the book. And she greeted them. A small girl approached them. She asked, "Hibana is a knight." Hibana looked at her and thought she was very cute. Hiro introduced Hibana to her. The girl looked at Hibana for a while, and she was delighted. Then she grabbed her hands and said that her brother had told her a lot about her. It turns out that this girl is Hiro's little sister. That is, the second princess of the kingdom of Cardosa, Nayuki Cardosa. She asked why he hadn't introduced them before. She knew that she rarely appeared in public, but now she met her for the first time. It's all because of Mili's sister. They don't show Nayuki to people on purpose, so he apologized. Hibana realized that he was right. She then bowed to Nayuki and said it was nice to meet her and introduced herself as Hibana Clerford. She was Prince Hiro's knight. She was also pleased to meet him and asked if she was her brother's friend. Hibana asked if she knew they were friends. Hiro explained that she rarely goes outside because of her weak body, and so he tells her about the world around her. Before, when he came for a book, he always told her about Hibana. She is weak, but she has always envied strong women, Nayuki admitted. And that's why I always admired her. Hibana was jealous that he had such a sister. She is so cute that I really want to hug her tightly. Suddenly, she was asked to refrain from such action. Hibana recognized the voice and looked up. They were waiting for them. It was the knight Nayuki, Hiro, and Hibana's friend, Rebecca. Nayuki said that since she was here, everything was fine. Rebecca said that only she can hug her. Hiro greeted Rebecca and thanked her for her help. Rebecca herself was not against it, after all. It was Princess Nayuki's order, but she will not forget this humiliation when she was forced to wear servants' clothes. When Hibana realized that it was she who brought them food back then, even though they hadn't seen each other for a long time, Rebecca asked if she didn't know because she was a bad student. Then, when Hibana got scared, she immediately said that she was joking. And she greeted her, because she became Prince Hiro's knight. And she shared that Hiro was quite stubborn in refusing other knights. It turns out he was waiting for her because of their promise. She was very happy and thanked me for it. Hiro just said it was nothing special. Rebecca misses her training with Master Heath. She then addressed him as good in quotes. But he became stronger, she asked. Hibana thought that Rebecca would become an army commander. It's even surprising that she serves someone. If she chose a mistress for herself, then it must be Princess Nayuki. She is an amazing person. Hearing this, Rebecca laughed quietly. And she said that Princess Nayuki is her everything. She is the greatest treasure of this kingdom. And she will protect her at the cost of her life. Hibana asked, "Has she always been like this?" Hiro said that they are different from Nayuki. She just idolizes her. He then approached Rebecca and said that her love for Nayuki was already clear, so he would explain everything to Hibana himself. He said that the two of them were secret allies. To convince her brothers, Nayuki baked bread. And Rebecca, disguised as a servant, delivered it to them. At this stage, he doesn't want many people to know about them, so he asked them for help. And he decided to return to the main thing they called him here because it was ready. Nayuki asked Rebecca to bring it, and she brought a rag with something inside. This was the paste that Hiro asked to make. Hiro took one thing and broke it in half. And he said it was well done. When Hibana asked what it was, Hiro explained to her that it was a type of noodle. It was hard and didn't look tasty. It was just dried out canned food that had to be cooked first before it could be eaten. Canned food may not sound like much, but if you boil the pasta in hot water, it turns out very tasty. They made it from wheat, sea salt given to them by their brother, water and some eggs, and mixed it all into a dough. Then they put the dough into a pasta machine that their brother made using alchemy, and the resulting paste needs to be dried in the sun. The surface of the pasta should be fixed and not change shape. Drying inside the room should return moisture to the pasta and prevent it from cracking. Drying in the sun and wind will dry the pasta completely. The paste can be stored for 3 years. When there is a good harvest, you can make the paste and save it in case of a bad harvest. Hibana had tried many different noodles in the Kinar Duchy, but never anything this hard. The only canned food Rebecca had ever seen was dried bread, but she had never thought about dried noodles. Hiro asked Nayuki, she called him to eat, and she prepared more than just dried food. She asked them to sit down at the table, because she had cooked a lot of things. They all sat down at the table together. Hibana asked them if they needed help, but they refused since they were their guests. And Nayuki, after all the preparations, told them to enjoy her noodles. The noodles looked very tasty. Rebecca said with a smirk, "Try the pasta that Princess Nayuki had prepared, which she had worked so hard on." To start, Hiro decided to add some salt. Then he twirled the paste onto his fork. And he took it into his mouth and began to chew. It was delicious. It turned out much tastier than his. This pasta is so unusual. Nayuki's food is easy and pleasant to eat. When Hiro cooked it, it was just awful. He didn't even think that it was possible to improve the taste so much with salt. Nayuki said that she had practiced a lot. Hiro was sure that their subjects would like her food. It was cool that after so many attempts, such a delicious dish turned out. Nayuki asked Hiro to try the pasta and sauce first and didn't say any compliments. And I decided to pour some white sauce first. When Hiro tried it, he immediately knew what it was. It was potato sauce. It was made using mushroom soup, to which puree and salt were added. Since he has memories from another world, he is not surprised by such a sauce based on onion soup puree. But Nayuki is different. She was able to come up with such a sauce. Living in a world where food is only cooked, she is definitely a culinary genius. Hibana decided to try another sauce. She just couldn't wait to do it. It tasted sour. The base of this sauce is vinegar. Hibana was surprised that their kingdom had vinegar. The paste and sour sauce went very well together in her opinion. But in fact, they got vinegar completely by accident while they were cooking. Vinegar itself is very convenient, and she decided to take advantage of this coincidence and created a sauce with vinegar, oil, salt, and dried meat. And this meat was also used in soup, and she asked how they liked it. Hibana said it was perfect. Both options were absolutely delicious. They have very rich flavors. She did a great job, and I asked if I could borrow her recipes. Nayuki happily allowed it, and moreover, decided to show these recipes to everyone. Rebecca pounced on Nayuki with congratulations. They will not only give the people wheat, but also easy pasta recipes with delicious sauces. Nayuki's help is simply invaluable and will be needed in the future. Hiro then remembered that she mentioned how she made vinegar by accident. He asked if she succeeded in making what she tried. She replied that everything worked out. There is still room for improvement, but it is already quite tasty. Hibana asked what exactly happened. Hiro asked Nayuki for something. He has been trying to do this for a long time. It will be a symbol of their developing country. Rebecca tried it too. It was amazing. She never thought that this would happen in their country. Hibane was now interested in trying it, because they were talking about it non-stop. Then Nayuki asked Rebecca to bring what she had prepared. Then she brought some kind of decanter, and she began to pour the drink into wooden glasses. It was all hissing and foaming. Hibana sniffed him, and almost immediately I realized what it was. Hiro told her to try, and she would definitely understand everything. Hiro hadn't had a drink for a long time, he thought. And he started drinking this liquid. Not only is it pleasant for the tongue, but also for the throat. The bitter taste disappears and sweetness appears, a powerful taste of wheat and hops. It was simply delicious. Hibane couldn't even believe it. This is L, and of very high quality. After he developed a new variety of wheat, all he could think about was making alcohol. This is not necessary to save the kingdom, but it is necessary to make the life of the people richer and happier. Such a symbol will be products of the flavor industry, for example, ale. It was surprising she had already tried ale in the Principality of Kinar, but for the first time, something so delicious. As for the taste, Hiro found out from the respondent that the main thing in it is the quality of the wheat and Nayuki's talent. This is the taste of happiness, a product not for a simple life, but for a rich, full life. He then turned to Nayuki, and he said that at the Harvest Festival he was going to announce that he would become king. And he wanted this ale on him and asked if she could arrange it all. Nayuki said that she would somehow cope with this task. Rebecca also decided to make every effort to help her. You can always rely on Nayuki. It's not for nothing that she's his little sister. The brothers think that Nayuki is useless, that she is too trusting and cannot go into diplomacy and therefore cannot marry for convenience. Not only is she very trusting, but even if she is smart, she is definitely not in politics. Despite having magical abilities, her skin is too sensitive to the sun. Exercise is detrimental to her body, so she won't be able to fight, and kindness is also dragging her down. But Nayuki has the power to save their kingdom. The bread that the brothers liked was baked by Nayuki. Next time they will tell them everything. They will definitely change their minds about Nayuki. Brother Takumu and Hibana's training is very important, but it is also important to make their kingdom prosperous. When they and Brother Agate team up and plant wheat everywhere, they will need Nayuki's recipes. By doing all this, their kingdom will only move forward. They started cleaning up after the whole meal. It was lunchtime, so Hiro said it was time to start measuring. But Hibana asked to give her another hour. When he asked why, she said that the food was so delicious that she overate it, and her belly became very big. Hiro didn't really care about it, but she asked him to understand her. Hiro then agreed, and immediately heard her start training. He asked if she was sweating. She hated sweating, so she had a towel. Almost an hour has passed already. Then Hibana began to undress, and when she finished, she said she was ready. And she approached Hiro, thanking him for waiting. She stood in front of him naked and asked if they could start already. Hiro looked at her and asked her to stand there, and he said that he would try to do everything faster. She felt quite ashamed standing like that. He started and touched her back. She squealed loudly. When he asked if everything was okay, she said his hands were cold. But Hiro said that it was more like her skin on her back that was hot. At sea, it was more open. He felt strange. When she's so modest. Then he shook his head and realized that this couldn't be done, it would be rude to Hibana, and he forced himself not to think about it and to concentrate. He sent a charge of electricity through her body once more. She still couldn't get used to the electric shock. Hiro told her to be patient for a little while. It was amazing. She develops her body perfectly. She had talent. Hibana was surprised that he could understand all this just from the electric current. If they succeed now, the difference with Takumu's brother will be minimal. Then it will be her part of the work. She will definitely get stronger within a week. Even with his weapon, her efforts won't be able to become as monstrously strong as Takumu, but together they can handle it. Hibana noted that it would be a bit wasteful if she was the only one using his weapons, and he said that in the future, he and his brother Takumu planned to supply his army with his weapons. It turns out he will do the same with men. It was good that he would make weapons for everyone. It turns out he would also make personal weapons for everyone. If they get a bad weapon, their army will be on par with the Golden Knights of the Duchy of Kinar. And if they make weapons better, then that will be their goal. If they don't win as easily as Takumu's brother without alchemy equipment, it'll be bad. It was cool that Hiro said that, but it still makes sense. She apologized for complaining earlier and will do everything in the best possible way. That was a good answer. She would do anything for Princess Nayuki's pasta. Delicious food gives a lot of energy. There was still a little left, and he asked her not to move. After a while, he became very tired. She thanked him and asked if he was very tired, and he thought that in a way he was. But that was all for today, so she can go to her room. And he himself wants to bring the work to perfection. She said that when he saw her naked, she was very worried and felt strange. After these words, she left. Hiro began to think about what she would order him to do. The next day, a tunnel in the vicinity of the Devil's Forest. They keep digging and digging, but there is still no end in sight. The distance is still small, but it will be even more difficult further on, said Hiro, and drainage and ventilation equipment needs to be prepared along the way. And he said that now they should have lunch. The food looked very tasty. For lunch, they have pasta prepared by Nayuki. She explained that you shouldn't forget to season the sauce to make it easier to snack on the street. They definitely won't take up much space. Then you need to wrap the minced meat with the finished noodles, and she added a little salt to the minced meat and made small cutlets. Princess Nayuki really loves learning new things. Hibana tried it. It was delicious. This salty taste is simply heaven for a tired body. They just started digging the tunnel yesterday. All they've been doing since early morning is digging this tunnel. Well, what can you do? If they have important things to do during the day, he will have a meeting with Prince Agata, and Hibana will be training with Takumu. And from today on, only she and Prince Takumu would be training, and she thought that she needed to show the soldiers how to become stronger. Hiro remembered that he would be busy today, so he wouldn't be able to see their training. But he wants her to describe in detail how she felt after the workout. And then he gave Hibana a suit. It turns out this is the same suit, but he said that it would take at least 2 days. And all because she said that she would get used to him in a day, and she also wants to clearly see her brother's movements. Then she grabbed his cheeks. And he said that if you look closely, you can see circles under his eyes. And she asked if he hadn't slept. Hiro said that he had, although only for 5 minutes. But Hibana was very glad that he did all this for her. She asked if they were really going to leave the tunnel at this stage. It would fall apart. Everything was right. They couldn't leave it like this. If they didn't work hard today, they wouldn't finish it on time. They can only do this with magic, and the amount of time it takes to restore mana is the same, so nothing should fall apart here in 2 days. Everything seems to be so strong, but compared to Hibana, it's not really strong. The sooner he finishes, the faster Hibana will become stronger. It's okay that he didn't sleep for one night. She thanked him and promised to wear it very carefully. Hiro told her not to be shy, and let her tell him her feelings. She is still inexperienced, and she still has many weak points. He will do more things for now. She will test this suit, identify its weak points, he will improve it, and she will become much stronger, such is their life. And if that's the case, she won't hold back. Hiro was sitting in the castle, and was sitting in front of Agatha. It was good that he came, and Agatha asked to show him the materials first. This year they will use the fields, so that their people can grow wheat, but first they need to show them the result, because this is risky not for the people but for them. At the moment they have two types of fields, privately owned and publicly owned. The cultivation of state fields is carried out by knights laborers. Such knights are not professionals, and their training takes a couple of hours. The rest of the time they either cultivate the fields or do farming. And the soldiers are usually second or third sons, or, which happens very rarely, people from another country. They contribute to the kingdom's general harvest, and in return receive a salary, and when they become old, they retire. Thanks to the brothers' development plan, there is always a lot of harvest, even paying wages. He remains in the black. Landless people can get money for normal food, and dream of getting their own field in the future. This system was invented by my brother, and both the people and the kingdom are in a favorable position. Very good domestic policy. No matter how much they say that wheat will not grow in the fields, if there is no precedent, then no one will be convinced of this. Besides, they have already tried to grow wheat several times and it never worked. If he starts talking about growing wheat again, then people will get scared and won't be able to do anything. So first, you need to show them a successful result. It is not enough to simply try, because a bad harvest year will lead to immediate general famine. But if they use state fields and night laborers, then it will be a completely different story. Even in the unlikely event of failure, they will simply be able to pay the knights and they will not die of hunger. And thanks to the fact that Hiro prepared the salt, it can be used at the right time. Agatha seems to not believe that wheat can grow, and is thinking about alternative options. He believes in his abilities, and that's a little different. It's just his job to prepare for everything. And since he has no objections to the plan, Hiro would like to continue the discussion. Agatha would like to say the same, but there was one problem. The soldiers won't agree to this. They came to ask that they plant sweet potatoes according to plan. They don't want to regret not planting sweet potatoes. Agatha told them that they would be paid a salary even if nothing grew. It was a pity, because they didn't even listen to him. They help each other survive in this unfavorable world. Their love for the country and their friends is very strong. They do not think about money in case of failure, but think that if they do not plant sweet potatoes, then someone will starve. It's very noble and makes you proud of them, but it would be a shame if they limited themselves to just sweet potatoes this year. First, wheat must be grown in the state field, showing good results and providing everyone with grain left for the next year, and next year, wheat cultivation will be planned throughout the kingdom. And if it doesn't work out this year, they'll be a whole year late. The only drawback is the difference in yield, with improved wheat yielding much more than sweet potatoes. In the current situation, it is very dangerous to rely only on sweet potatoes. If you continue to grow sweet potatoes on the same land, its yield will decrease as the land gradually becomes infertile. Much more frightening is the infection of sweet potatoes. If they get sick, it will definitely lead to general famine. And there is no guarantee that this will not happen. Hiro wants them to have at least 2 staple foods. Wheat is one of the pillars of salvation of this kingdom. The loss of 1 year will have a very unpleasant effect on the economy of the kingdom. Of course, they could just order the knights to work, but that would be wrong. This kingdom was created only because the people love it, and if the foundation is broken, the accumulated discontent will immediately burst out. But if you force them to plant wheat, and it grows, then you can somehow convince the people, but it is quite risky. The people living here are the only treasure of the kingdom. They cannot be lost. Its wheat takes 3 months to harvest. This variety is cold hardy but does not survive the full winter. Given the season, it needs to be planted within 3 weeks before it is too late. But he wants everyone to work, believing that they can enrich their kingdom. So he turned to Brother Agatha and asked him to convince them himself. 5 years ago, Hero ran with a sword and screams to a tree. But when he hit the tree, he only flew back. The workers immediately ran up to him and asked him to rest, because simply swinging a sword would not make him stronger. Hero thought that he would like to wake up in an open field with seeds. He was hungry and needed to get money. Then someone handed him some boiled potatoes. The boy asked if he was resting and gave him a treat from his mother. And then he encouraged all the other workers to make another dash, because they were princes too. Hero thanked him for the treat, and the guy went back to work. Hero and Agatha watched the field from above. Work finished early today. Agatha asked why he didn't find out more about it. But he didn't want to disturb their work and decided to wait until they finished. Agatha could call them to the castle. He doesn't want to go to the outpost. You need to show your sincerity, he said. Brother Agatha's story was excellent, but there was something strange. The strange thing was that Agatha couldn't convince them, and realized that he himself had to try to convince them. The guy rang the bell and said they were done and had done a good job. Hero then came over and greeted them. The guy had told him not to come alone, and Hero knew that he himself knew that he shouldn't do that. He would like to talk to Hero because there are certain rumors going around. Then he asked him for more new tools. The times when they could do without them were already gone, and they would be grateful to him. Hero agreed with them because they were more practical than the old ones. Most of the mined iron was needed to create armor. It was a pity that there was no mine. If he did not use the handle that he took in his hands, then he would be limited to using only the tip of the blade. And the guy was also thinking about when they would be able to plant sweet potatoes. Hero didn't think he needed adventure, so go ahead and grow wheat. And then he said that they would grow wheat. They have no other options. The workers immediately started whispering about it. They couldn't believe that this was their hero prince. They thought about it quite a lot. But Hero too, and asked them to listen to him. He wants them to think about growing green onions and wheat. And he asked them to stop mumbling and take a better look at the wheat he had brought. Maybe with a special fertilizer, it will germinate this time. Wheat is much more reliable than sweet potato. There is a very low probability of failure with it. If all goes according to plan, it will bear fruit by winter. The workers thought about it. She is small. There will be nothing to eat. They will feed like mosquitoes, the guy said. Even here the prince lies, eternal perhaps, and if everything goes according to plan, and he asked if he knew what happens when hunger comes. Winter might come very early this year, and if he didn't do strange things, they would be able to survive it peacefully this year, and he asked why he was doing unnecessary things. Simon may not be a bad guy, but he doesn't agree that growing sweet potatoes is the only right way out, and he may be a fool, but unlike others, he can be convinced otherwise. He is one of the people he can trust. Talking to anyone but him could lead to unpleasant consequences. Hero could answer his question as to why he wanted to grow wheat. This is to enrich the country. When he was told that it was still the same idea that drove him, he replied that in any case, sweet potatoes could no longer be used. The yield of this wheat is higher than that of sweet potato. Besides, it is useless in its current form. The country may fall into decline. And he was terribly afraid of it, Hero said. Then he bowed and asked them to trust him. They were surprised by this trick from Hero. His request must not be what they need right now. Now he is negotiating, even if he doesn't want to do so. All his wishes and help meant only one thing. He considered them like-minded people. He doesn't want to deceive his feelings, because they are his friends. Simon asked him to stop and grow up. His father and grandfather also grew wheat, but they realized how hopeless it was. Hiro then promised that such failures would not be repeated. After thinking for a bit, Simon finally decided to believe him, because he was saying it after all. They will grow wheat, and asked him to raise his head, otherwise he looks bad. No one is going to beat him here anyway. He thanked him for it. Simon would have found this disgusting long ago. Suddenly, a complaint was heard from behind. The workers did not want to grow wheat, because the prince clearly did not understand anything about agriculture. The royal family is not starving, that's why he says so. They don't care what happens to them, and they won't let their fields be used. So Hiro definitely won't be able to convince them. If he fails to do this, he will not have the opportunity to move forward. Suddenly, Simon shouted loudly for them all to listen to him. He asked them not to say nonsense, like Hiro doesn't know how agriculture works, doesn't know about the suffering of ordinary people, and so on. Everyone around covered their ears from the volume of Simon's voice. He told them to remember who shared knowledge with them when there was a crop failure, thanks to whom it was possible to change the situation at that time. It was Hiro. He didn't have the strength of Takumu's brother. He didn't have the intelligence of Agatha's brother. He had nothing that could be of use to this country. Since Hiro doesn't know about people's suffering, he wasn't obligated to go through hard times with them, but they sweated together, gritted their teeth. They wanted to make this country a better place. And when he heard their complaints and suggested a way to make things a little better, they all hung their heads, Simon said, and asked them to look at these iron hoes they had. Hiro called himself helpless. He just wastes time trying to do anything. He's just trying to forget that he's helpless. There are no good doctors in the country, and the Hero Prince was the only one who treated them. When Simon's mother was struck down by illness, he spent 3 days and 3 nights tirelessly caring for her, and it is only thanks to him that she is now alive and well. To say that he does not care about what will happen to the people is completely stupid. It was just complacency, Hiro thought, because that was what he could do. Simon believed him, because he was a hero prince. Together they tried, together they helped. He will follow Takumu if he says that everything is fine and wheat is better than potatoes. Then they can only trust him. Everyone around stood silently and thought. Hiro knew he had to say something, but he couldn't find the words. He doesn't know what he should say. He had too many feelings and he couldn't control himself. It was the first time he had felt something like this. Then the workers approached him, and they apologized for everything they said. They understood everything, but growing wheat was still unreliable. 5 years ago, one of the men's younger brother died of hunger, and he himself was also on the verge of death. He remembered all that time. They were just afraid and thought it was too unreliable. Forgetting the good done by the Hero Prince, they reproached him and did not think about it at all. Hiro smiled at them and said that he understood what they were afraid of, but he would never let them down. The workers were delighted and decided to grow wheat. Then Hiro said that he brought something. He brought some fresh bread from the harvested potatoes. It was very tasty. If they plant wheat, they will have a lot of bread. If you can see their true feelings despite all the troubles, then everything is fine. He will not betray their expectations and faith. Before, in order not to worry, he thought about double and triple precautions, but this time he will try even harder. Hiro walked down the corridor with Agatha, and then he said he did well. Hiro said that if it were him, Agatha, he would have convinced everyone himself. After all, Hiro was able to convince them only with eloquence, and it would have been better if he had been beaten. Firstly, if the opportunity is used correctly, the loyalty of Simon, who is significant among the residents, will only grow. If so, then the rest of the residents will also ardently support Hiro, and he will become king. He didn't like how selfish it sounded, but politics includes that too. And secondly, it is incredibly important. Agatha wanted to say that he was afraid of something in Hiro. Hiro asked again if Agatha was really afraid of him. And he confirmed his words. Hiro said that he was happy with what he was doing. He had been helping different people for a long time. If you look at it from the scale of the whole country, these are insignificant things. However, when taken together, it becomes a huge force. The people's trust, that's what. People believe in what he tells them and they will follow him. Trust is not gained in one day. It is an unshakable treasure and also the most powerful weapon. If Hiro becomes king, he should remember well that the complacency he spoke of has turned into trust. If he has it, this country can change. Everything he has done up until now has not been in vain. Not in vain. Probably all this time, Hiro wanted to hear exactly these words for them to be said to him. Agatha did all this in order to understand what weapon he had before becoming king. Alchemy is nothing more than a tool. Therefore, in order to change the country, he must think about more. What scared him was the trust that Hiro could gain, and Agatha said to never forget that. If he forgets, then he will not forgive him and will take over this country. Brother Agatha noticed him. Now Hiro is in his debt. These two want to be themselves, without being ashamed of anything. To be worthy of gaining the trust of these people, he too will remain himself. And he will certainly be able to change the country if he loves it. In the field, Hiro walked around and handed out leaflets to all the workers. They were confused about what was written on it. From the next day, they began to plant wheat in all the fields. He took charge of sowing wheat to ensure the correct technique and effective fertilization of the soil. This year, he is leading the process, but from next year, he will train people from the village so that they can replace him. Explaining everything once will not be enough, so he distributes instructions. Simon rang the bell and said that the work was finished for the day. They all tried hard, and some of them even planned to pray for success. Hiro said that cold weather spoils wheat, but it can grow well in low temperatures. The workers were surprised that Hiro understood everything. Simon asked if he didn't have to go back to the castle. Hiro admitted that he currently leads a rather hectic life. However, a sense of completion has emerged. The tunnel continues to be built little by little, and the wheat crops are increasing. Before winter comes, beautiful ears of grain will surely appear in the fields. Everyone was happy that they would be able to grow a lot of tasty wheat. When the wheat sprouts, the whole country will be filled with smiles. Hiro couldn't wait for that day. Hiro was sitting in his office, and it was already time for dinner. Then Hibana knocked on his door and entered his office. Before she could even enter, she immediately collapsed on the floor. Hiro jumped up and asked if she was okay. She apparently lost consciousness for a while from fatigue. Hibana was badly beaten again, but this time she was able to hook Takuma. Hiro began to apply an ointment that would immediately make her feel better. She was in pain, so she asked to be more gentle. Hiro finished with her back and told her to apply it to the front herself. She asked if the front also needed to be smeared, and he replied that this could only be done after the wedding. It was an unexpected announcement from a member of the royal family, and she had been looking forward to it. However, because she hooked him, they might have a chance to win. She would be able to hit him during acceleration. The power of her equipment was put into that blow. That was already good, and Hiro asked if she had noticed anything else interesting, and she only said that Takumu had perfect coordination. The first time she fought him, she couldn't move her arms or legs, but today, on the third day of training, she was finally able to land one blow. If this continues, then in the remaining 3 days she will be able to completely defeat him. It sounded promising, and Hiro was looking forward to her victory. He then remembered that she said that among the Golden Knights there were 8 people who were unable to defeat her, and asked what about the other 4. She thought that their strength was almost equal to them. The knights were equal in number of holy swords, but 8 of them were outstanding. If he had a sword, she was sure he could win too. So there are ranks among the Golden Knights too, and he asked how she would rate Takuma compared to the knights. Even if the opponents had holy swords, he would have defeated 5 of them, but he would not have been able to overcome the remaining 3. Those who are called the 3 holy swords are special. Maybe if Brother Takumu had the magic sword made by Hiro, he could defeat the 3 sacred swords. Hibana said that maybe he would have won, but maybe he would have lost. Until today, Hiro knew that his brother was strong, but he didn't understand if it was true on a global scale, but he is well aware of his mighty strength, comparable to that of the Golden Knights. If they can include Takuma in their plan, the chances of success will increase. The main problem of this country is that the neighboring countries will start invading when they find out about the wealth of their country. At such times, the best way to solve the problem is not to use force. However, the number of people who were in favor of victory at any cost significantly exceeds those who did not need the war. They will be able to fight only as a last resort because there are also peaceful measures. They say it is better to have an ace up your sleeve. If they had Takumu, who could match the 3 holy swords in strength, and Hibana, who could surpass him, potentially 2 people in this country could become as powerful as the 3 holy swords. Maybe they could defeat the Golden Knight Order. Hibana said that it was arrogant to think that the 2 of them could defeat the Golden Knights. They needed at least 1 more person. And it will be Hiro, Hibana said. Hiro refused because even if he had a first-class sword, he would not be the best. Hibana understood this, so he would be on par with them thanks to his fighting style. In that case, that would be enough. It was possible, but it wasn't necessary, Hiro said. Besides, it would be nice to try to find out the fighting power of alchemical silver. Then he asked her not to change her clothes in his room. She asked what was wrong with that. Anyway, in the future they would most likely live together. Quite willful, but since she had no questions about the equipment, he told her not to waste time and asked what happened. Hibana had one request. She would like him to name her sword. It's an important gift from the man she trusts her life to, and calling it just a magic sword is somehow sad. He made this sword especially for her, and asked if it was okay if he himself named the sword. But that was exactly what Hibana wanted him to call him. When he asked why, she replied, "Sentimentality." But he still didn't understand it, but if it makes her happy, he'll definitely come up with it. Then he looked at Hibana. Hibana was looking at her sword at the time, and then something clicked inside Hiro. And then he said Hanabi. This will be the name for this sword, Hanabi. He explained that Hanabi means sparkling fire flowers blooming in the sky, which are truly beautiful. Hibana also sparkles when using her sword, so he thought the name was appropriate. After hearing the explanation, she looked at her sword. The fiery colors blooming in the sky sounded very romantic. She would like to see it. But Hiro said it wasn't impossible. Then, when she defeats Takuma in a duel, they will celebrate that evening and set off fireworks. Well, if she loses, then nothing will happen, and they will work on their mistakes. But Hibana said that she would never lose. Fighting without knowing the meaning of the sword's name sounded very sad. There are 3 days left until the fight. It would be stupid to develop such a complex fireworks display now. But even so, he can handle it. He wants to see Hibana admiring him. Because when looking at fireworks, she is much more beautiful than the fireworks themselves. Then suddenly she said that there was no time to rest, so she started doing push-ups. Hiro asked her not to overdo it. The day of the duel between Hibana and Takumu has arrived. Prince Hiro came, and the rest followed. It was Princess Nayuki. Some were seeing her for the first time. Nayuki looked at them and winked at them. The soldiers immediately became embarrassed by this, and together they shouted her name, when suddenly Rebecca looked at them. She was right in her element. Takumu was waiting in the arena. Hiro and Hibana also climbed onto it. Hiro remembers the day Hibana and Takumu first fought. But today they have equal chances of winning. Takumu and Hiro's fight will be witnessed by Agata. In this duel, Hiro's knight, Hibana, will fight instead. This is a serious fight with real swords. The condition for victory is to land one blow with the sword. The loser renounces the right of succession to the throne, and he, the second prince of the kingdom of Agatha, has already renounced it. So the winner automatically becomes the next king, and he asked if anyone objected. Hiro didn't mind, and Takumu had no objections either. He then entrusted his fate to his sword, and Hiro entrusted his fate to the sword that is his knight. The preparations were complete, and he asked if his brother was ready. He said to wait a second. He asked Hiro and his knight to win this duel. Everyone was surprised by this because Takumu doesn't often want to lose. It sounded like they had agreed on this beforehand, so Takumu clarified that he wasn't giving up. He wanted him to justify his beliefs through combat, and if he couldn't surpass him, then Hiro's views will be and become insignificant. In that case, it would be better for them to disappear for his own good and the good of the country. Then he himself will become the king of the country. Hiro then simply nodded in response. But if he surpasses Takuma, then he will acknowledge his beliefs as true and will provide him with the subordinates he forged himself. He said to look very carefully. After all, he will fight with full force and in all seriousness. So when he is surpassed, then he will acknowledge Hiro. Hearing this, the rest of the soldiers shouted in unison and began to cheer for Commander Takuma. All of them who follow Takumu want to see his power. They believe in Takuma and are happy that they will be able to see him fight at full strength. Therefore, he longs to see a power that will surpass him. Hiro looked at Hibana. Then he turned to Takumu and said that he had heard everything he had said, and now all that remained was for him to win. Hiro tried to call Hibana, but she didn't answer. Then he grabbed her by the shoulder, which scared her very much. He asked her with a smile if she was afraid. She admitted that she was indeed afraid, but all her fear had disappeared thanks to the fright, and now everything was normal. She pretends to be strong, but this pretense makes her feel confident. Hibana has really grown up. Hiro ordered her to go and return victorious. She nodded back at him and headed towards the arena. Takumu asked her to demonstrate her superiority. She alone would not have been able to resist him. Even though she had become stronger, she was still no match. But together with Hiro, they will be able to hold on to victory. After these words, they both stood in a stance. Agatha announced the beginning of the duel. Hibana instantly rushed forward to attack. She used the acceleration function. This function stimulates the brain and the body's internal current, and also enhances the acuity of dynamic vision and reflexes. She attacks first, and Takumu is completely open. If it doesn't work now, she will be killed. Hibana attacked very quickly, but Takumu also managed to dodge. Previously, she was only able to hook her brother, but now she sees all his movements. Not only Hiro, but the others watched this as well. Hibana looks cool in Nayuki's eyes, and Takumu, although he stepped back, continues to dodge. She pressed harder and harder with her attacks. Suddenly, Takumu came behind her and stood in a stance. He pointed the sword towards her until she turned around. But Hibana barely managed to block the blow. She managed to block the attack with her sword, and she stopped him only with the hilt of her sword. Takumu already thought that they could end it here. But after landing on the edge of the arena, Hibana disappeared from Takumu's sight. She instantly moved to a blind spot. The attack from there will not be visible. She was behind him and already thought that she would be able to touch him. And she boldly decided to stab him in the back. But suddenly, Takumu disappeared from under the sword's blow. As it turned out, he appeared right behind Hibana, even though she was out of sight. Based on her position, he predicted the trajectory. So he took a swing at her. The sword was already approaching Hibana, Hiro yelled at Hibana to react faster. She tried to block the blow and cut the sword in half. The tip of the sword flew past Takumu's face, and everyone around was shocked. He just grinned and was shot straight in the chest. Takumu fell to the ground, blood spurting out. And the winner was Hibana Clurford. Hiro immediately ran to the arena to see his brother. Walking up to him, he took out a flask and poured the contents onto Takumu's wound. He was instantly healed, and the wound healed right before our eyes. Hiro asked if he was okay. Looking at the healed wound, he noticed that it looked like magic. On the surface of the skin, the wounds have healed, but he still needs rest for the next few days, and such wounds will heal in 3 days. Hibana's sword and armor were worn out in this battle, but they turned out to be very reliable. Then he stood up, admitting that he had lost badly. Imagining what would happen if a magic sword collided with a normal one, he tried to avoid hitting it in the duel, but Hibana's counterattack exceeded all his expectations. The moment he parried her blow, the outcome of the battle was already decided. Then he turned to the public, who had seen everything, and he asked if he didn't look like an idiot for making it easier for his opponent to win. Thanks to the sword and equipment that Hiro made, Hibana managed to even the odds in the fight. Faith in this power allows one to entrust power to Hiro. And Takumu asked him to make them stronger with his power, because for his sake, they would use it for good. Hiro then stood up and promised to do it. He made a promise to Takumu and his fighters that he would use these powers to revive the country. So he asked them to use his knowledge to become stronger than before. The crowd roared in delight at his words. Takumu suggested congratulating Hiro on becoming the next king. There would be no reward, but still, one should rejoice a little. Then Hiro noticed that Hibana was still sitting. Then he decided to approach her, and he sat down next to her, thanking her for the victory. It was a little strange for her to stay alive. After all, she already thought that she would die, and she was very lucky that she was able to prevent that blow. But Hiro said that it wasn't luck, and luck didn't save her. She became stronger, everything as expected from the knight Hiro. She was pleased to hear this. People began to prepare tables. And Takumu declared a feast and allowed them to eat as much as they wanted. The maids brought in a pile of beer and plates with a mountain of boiled potatoes. But the more they ate, the less appetite they all had, although it was a long-awaited event. But for the potatoes to be so tasteless, Hiro even wishes they had salt. This should have been sorted out before growing potatoes, but both wheat and potatoes were needed. Nayuki and Rebecca ran up to them. The two of them congratulated Hibana on her victory. But even though she won, she doesn't feel any joy. If she had an ordinary sword, she would have definitely lost. Even if this is so, next time under the same conditions they will certainly win. Nayuki remarked that Hibana's fighting was great, and she thanked him for the compliment. By this time, all the potatoes had already run out. Even though it wasn't tasty, I was still sad that it was over. It was strange because Hiro asked to cook more. Then Nayuki said there was no need to worry, and Rebecca allowed them to bring in something. In fact, half of the potatoes went into preparation for Takumu's victory celebration. Nayuki really hoped that they would like everything. Hiro was very surprised when she opened the lid, and I saw real croquettes inside. She cooked them herself because this is the dish that Hiro told her about earlier. Takumu approached the table, noticing the delicious appearance and smell. Agatha had never seen anything like this before, especially made from potatoes. Hiro said it's better to eat it with your hands. And then, taking the croquette in a napkin, he bit off a piece of it. It was very tasty for them. The oil flowed out, and the edges crunched loudly. Takumu asked if Nayuki had prepared this delicious treat. She was glad that Takumu praised her. And Rebecca was also glad to see Nayuki so happy. These potato croquettes turned out great. When the housewives salted the goat meat, there was excess fat left over, which she took and used, adding a little salt. She ground the potatoes thoroughly with the addition of salt, meat, and milk, resulting in soft and crumbly potatoes. And on top she took flour and eggs, dried the bread, and got breadcrumbs. It is not easy to prepare such a delicious dish using only second-rate ingredients, but if you tell people about it, they will definitely be happy about it. She used an iron pan and a lot of oil for frying, and there aren't many iron pans in the city, and to get enough fat, she had to crush a lot of goat meat. And she admitted that this is a good way even without frying. Rebecca immediately grabbed Nayuki, saying that even a king should not make a princess sad. Hiro immediately said that it was quite easy to make oil from plants, but the situation with iron was a little more complicated. There are no mines in this country, so there is a severe shortage of iron. However, from now on it will certainly be enriched. Even in order to prepare for war, a lot of iron will be needed. An easy way to obtain it is to import it from neighboring countries, but if they encounter resistance when purchasing large quantities of iron, they risk falling under the hot hand of other countries who will consider them hostile because of such purchases. And in the event of a war being unleashed, he would first of all like to secretly obtain a lot of iron. While he was thinking, Nayuki asked him to stop worrying. He apologized and said it wasn't because of the dish, but because of the iron requirement. And he promised that they would get it in the near future. And then, iron pots and knives will finally appear in people's homes. Hiro seemed to be planning something impossible. Today, Hiro became king, so Agatha asked him not to upset both him and Takuma. Clinking glasses, he made a promise to Agatha, and they continued their feast. However, Nayuki really surprised everyone by being able to cook such a complex dish. Not only does she have a sufficient amount of knowledge, she also has the necessary level of expressiveness. You can immediately see that she is a bookworm. She tries to help them as best she can, and Hiro asked if she should leave the country's political issues. But Agatha immediately said that she was against it. Hiro understood him because he was also against attracting public attention to her. For her own sake, he does not want to use his sister, but he wondered if it was right to let her do only cooking. Then Nayuki herself ran up to them. And she shared that she had already talked enough and was pretty tired, so she decided to return to her place. Suddenly, she stepped backwards right onto the glass on the floor. She slipped on it. Hiro and Agatha immediately reached out to her with their hands. And at the same time, they caught her, preventing her fall. They looked at each other in surprise. And then they all burst out laughing. At that moment, Rebecca ran up and asked if everything was okay, but the brothers had already managed to save her from falling. It was a bit of a strange feeling, even though they hadn't been on good terms before. It was a lot of fun spending time together. Hiro agreed with this. Even though Nayuki had been their go-between before, they almost never got together. Nayuki then pouted, saying that they had too bad a relationship and she always tried to get along with both of them so that they could become the same. He apologized for this, because she constantly had to be a bridge between them. Agatha then said that he was going to go back to the castle, because he still had work to do. But Hiro asked both Agatha and Nayuki to wait a little longer, because he wanted to show them something interesting. They became really curious about what he had cooked up. Hiro then stood in the arena and called out to all the people. And he announced that he had prepared something in honor of today's battle between Hibana and Takuma. And he asked them to look towards the flag. Then he went backstage, grabbed the chain, and ran the current through it. Suddenly, the cannons behind the scenes loaded and fired into the sky. And shells flew across the dark sky. They exploded in a big, beautiful fireworks display. Everyone saw this, from the people at the feast to the simple peasants. The fireworks were visible even beyond the kingdom's borders. The fiery flowers blooming in the sky that Hibana spoke of were fireworks. It was very beautiful. The people were all in awe when the sky began to shine. Takumu was also surprised that he did it. Agatha had never seen anything like it before, and Nayuki would like to see it again. The guards still sat stunned by the fireworks. There was a pleasant atmosphere all around. If people didn't like the fireworks, it would have been a waste of time, but now it didn't matter. It was clear that people were happy. Hibana approached Hiro and said that the fireworks were incredibly beautiful and that she would never forget them. Hiro admitted that it was quite difficult to make, so he's glad everyone liked it. So Hibana's sword was named after something so beautiful. But the owner of this same sword is as beautiful as the fireworks themselves. She was very happy about it. However, she considered herself unworthy of this name, for now. And so she will continue to try so that one day he will show her an even more beautiful fireworks display. Hiro will be looking forward to this. Hibana then remembered how he said that if he got the wheat, he would hold a harvest festival, and at the harvest festival, he was going to announce his coronation. For the first time in the history of this land, such a feast will be organized on it, that bread, ale, and seafood will be placed in rows on the tables. The holiday will definitely be a great success, and there will be a lot of fireworks. Such a celebration will definitely please everyone. It sounds too sweet, but Hiro had to do it. By the time the festival comes, they will have a lot of millet. A tunnel to the sea will be dug. They will have access to salt, and will finally be able to get seafood. They will become much richer. And when winter comes, there will be plenty of food, and the rest they can use for later. This is exactly the future he would like to give them all. It all sounded very cool. After all, he believes that simply existing is not enough, happiness is not a dream, and this is exactly what he wants to convey to the people at the Harvest Festival. He found a common goal for them, and will go towards it no matter what. And only through diligence can he make people happy. The fireworks were beautiful, but Hibana wondered if the round shape and fiery color were made by chemistry. Hiro replied that it was chemistry and nothing more. The shape was regulated by a large circle, in which there were already small powder balls, and by igniting special metals, they could extract a fiery color. He went all out with the fireworks, but he's going to go even further for the Harvest Festival. It is quite possible to survive the winter, but due to the lack of food, the Harvest Festival has not been held for 20 years. Hibana said that it would be okay, since she would also try her best if she could enjoy his fireworks again. Hiro asked if she was still full, to which she replied that not at all, she was always hungry, and remarked that Princess Nayuki's croquettes were delicious. Then he asked her what she thought about dessert. She immediately lit up when she heard about dessert. There was nothing but wheat around. It was an experimental farm. Hibana wondered what could be made from wheat. But he replied that there was more to it than just wheat. And he asked her to come to the door. In the distance, she saw large glass buildings. They looked quite strange, but if you go inside, you can be even more surprised. They went inside and saw big fruits. It was a fruit called melon. They smelled so sweet that it made your head spin. This is a fruit from the Far East and is quite difficult to obtain here, although melons are not very expensive. But he managed to obtain their seeds only in a unique way. She asked what other method. It sounds very suspicious. Then she took a breath of air and her mouth started to water from the smell alone. Apparently these fruits are very expensive because this is the first time in her life that she has smelled such a sweet smell. Then her stomach began to rumble. There is no choice after all, and sweets are not something that can be enjoyed regularly in their country. She wanted to try it as soon as possible and asked if it was possible. Hiro replied that she could choose any one, so she decided to take the biggest one. But then I noticed that there was no land in this field. Even though there was none, you could grow fruit here too. Hiro explained that it was called hydroponics. Basically, cultivation is done with water and fertilizers. In agriculture, anything can only be grown thanks to fertile soil, so she got the impression that there were no other ways. And when she asked why they couldn't be seen from the outside, he replied that it was just a precaution. Hydroponic equipment is too complicated to manufacture, so people might say something like, "He did it with alchemy." Hiro sometimes withdraws into himself. Before growing them, he thought that this was a good way to attract foreign capital, and it would be great to use them as gifts for some significant dates. Hibana was happy that thanks to Hiro she could try such a delicious thing, and she wouldn't tell anyone about it. And she chose the sweetest looking one. Here it is, the Knight's Sixth Sense. After smelling it, it smelled very good, and she asked if Hiro would be there too. Suddenly, he asked, "Isn't one enough for two?" And he suggested eating it entirely. She happily agreed to this. Then Hiro took a knife and divided the melon first in half. Having taken out the seeds, I divided them into 4 parts. And now the melon could be eaten without any problems. When cut, the sweet aroma of the melon became even stronger. Hiro told her to take the piece in her hands and bite it boldly. She took one and prepared to take a bite. And finally she bit into the melon and immediately howled from its taste. The taste was very rich and sweet, and also very juicy, and every time you bite into it, sweet juice comes out. And in my mouth it was soft and seemed to melt, while the outer side was solid. Hiro said not to eat it because it's the peel. Even after some time, there is still a lot of it left. They continued eating and finishing the melon, and finally they ate it all. It was incredibly delicious, and she described it as truly a fruit of paradise. And she added that now she had never been so glad that she followed him. It was a little painful to hear it. She would like others to try this delicious treat too, but Hiro would be uneasy if people found out about them. He thought about using the yo as a reward. He would give it if someone achieved greatness, either in war or in cultivating the land, as if that was a good motivation. But personally, Hibana would be ready to kill for this melon. Hiro asked her not to joke like that. But she really did find it very tasty. It was the first time she had tried anything like it in her life. Today, she saw the most beautiful thing in human life, and also tasted something most delicious. He thought that sometimes it wouldn't hurt, and decided to give it to her as a reward. Then she must try hard for such a reward. Then she smelled something from far away, and she asked what that smell was, pointing towards the building. Hiro replied there was actually something special there. Opening the door, he saw a lot of barrels inside. Now is the perfect time to open it up and taste the inside. The smell was pleasant, very similar to alcohol. And so it was a cellar with melon liqueur. Having grown a large amount of melon, he could not eat it all by himself, and even what was left could not be used entirely for fertilizer. So he thought and decided that he could try to make melon tincture, and no matter how delicious it was, he could not show it to the people. Now, Hibana was even surprised that he initially wanted to throw away all this deliciousness. She understood everything, of course, but it was still a pity. She liked this melon too much. The tincture can be stored in the cellar every year, and when he has no doubts about its taste, he can finally present it to the people. Hibana was going to wait for that day to come. And then she asked if she could taste the tincture itself. Hiro was right on target. But he said that if she didn't like it, she didn't have to drink it, because he adjusted this tincture to his taste. Only Hibana was determined to try it. When she tasted it, she felt a wonderful, concentrated taste of melon. To make the tincture, the melon had to be crushed and left to ferment for some time. Not only was it sweet, it was the first time in her life that she had tried sweet alcohol, and she could drink a lot of it. Making sweet alcohol is inherently problematic, as all sweetness is lost in the process of converting sugar into alcohol, but If the melon has a high sugar concentration, the yeast fermentation can be stopped to keep the alcohol sweet. And it turns out he made not just a sweet, but a complex sweet tincture. She could not wait until she could drink her fill of sweet alcohol. And she asked if she could have another mug. He allowed her to drink if she liked, that's what he said then, without attaching much importance to his words. She continued drinking. They clinked glasses with each mug, and so they drank a lot of alcohol. Hiro never even thought that this would lead to a major disaster. Hibana plopped down on Hiro and looked at his eyes, saying how beautiful they were. He never thought he would drink a whole mug. She noticed that his skin was also very warm. The liquor is sweet and easy to drink, and much stronger than ale, due to the large amount of sugar being converted into alcohol, something he hadn't noticed before. No matter how much she drank, it was still too much, and he asked if she could go and sleep it off. Hibana thought for a moment and looked at him. And then she touched his lips with her fingers. She wanted to ask for a very long time. Why doesn't he touch her? She told him that she loved him and was completely open with him. Hiro asked if she meant the time when she changed clothes in front of him. He thought she didn't perceive him as the opposite sex. But in reality this was not so. She was naturally ashamed too. Then he asked her to say it directly. She still couldn't bring herself to invite him. And she asked Hiro if he liked her at all. He said that he really likes her because she is his dear friend. She asked if she was just a friend to him, and he didn't feel anything else. After sitting for a while, he admitted that there was a bit of that. She is beautiful and charming, and sometimes he has to restrain himself with all his might. He would not usually say such a thing, but now he is drunk. Then Hibana leaned towards him and asked if he was okay with it. She wants him to take possession of her, completely. Hiro swallowed hard and said that he wanted that too. But it was impossible, she knows it too. He vowed that he would change this country and find the strength to bring back his first love. Hibana asked if he really loved Princess Miri more than her. And to be honest, Hiro didn't know that. That's how much he liked her. Hibana was very embarrassed by his words. And she asked, why not? She had already said that she did not want to become a queen, and could simply be a convenient figure for him. He remembered it, but it was just his problem, and he thought that his feelings for her had become even stronger than his feelings for his sister. He was afraid that if he fell in love with someone else, the memory of his own sister would disappear inside him. Hiro realized that he had been talking a lot lately, and he knew that he shouldn't talk like that. What did he do to help her in any way? He had already completely stopped trying. Hibana looked at him and listened attentively. When the ground slips out from under his feet, he stops believing in himself, and apparently he has already betrayed the faith of those people who entrusted it to him. Perhaps they should run away somewhere together and finally sort out their own feelings. He called himself a complete weakling, and it was damn disgusting for him. Perhaps Hibana had already become disillusioned with him when he looked at her. But suddenly, he saw her climbing towards him with outstretched arms. She hugged him and said that everything was exactly the opposite. He let her see his weaknesses that he hadn't spoken about before. That wasn't fair. Hiro apologized to her, but now he was calm since she didn't hate him. And then he called himself a complete egoist. Thanks to her, he realized what he had to do. He committed to rebuilding this country and bringing back Princess Amelie. Hibana asked him after all this to give her her chance. He didn't mind and agreed. And as long as she was with him, he felt that any obstacle would be within his reach. Then asked to forget about everything that happened today. She couldn't do anything about it because she was very drunk. And everything he heard before was just drunken delirium. And as proof of this, she began to switch off. And then she fell into his lap, falling asleep. But Hiro will never be able to forget this. Because how can you forget what your girlfriend told you? She started walking towards the castle through the tunnel with Hibana on her back. Hiro will never forget this day, but he can only pretend that he has forgotten. And he promised her that when he returns his sister, then he will seriously think about their relationship. 2 months have passed since Hibana's victory. With winter approaching, things are moving very quickly. Measures to enrich the country and build up the army are gaining momentum. Hiro came to visit the man and ask how he was feeling. That man was his father, who was lying in bed with an IV drip. He sat down on the chair and continued to talk about how he was going to make another version of the new drug. And while the father sleeps, the whole country changes. And not so long ago, they dug a tunnel that leads to the sea. All the brothers and Hibana stood in the tunnel, looking at the lighting from inside. When they see this magnificence, their breath is taken away. In the Devil's Forest, you can even use a magic lamp. They worked very hard on this. And they did something really unusual. They came to Hiro after finishing all the work and asked if there really was a sea behind this cave, even though it was a tunnel and not a cave. Hiro replied that everything was true, the sea would be at the end, and unlike the lake, there were a lot more fish there. When the expedition group returned from the sea, there was a big commotion. They brought a lot of fish and shellfish. But they needed even more, so he took a cart. Agatha asked where the horses for the cart were. Hiro then pointed to Takuma and Hibana, saying that they had someone faster and stronger than horses. They immediately began to run forward at high speed. Hibana found this to be very good training. Takuma agreed with her and ran as fast as he could. Agatha is sometimes amazed by it. Hiro isn't even sure they can stop them. But still, they are magnificent. They drag this cart from the castle longer. The cart does not shake at all, and the wheels do not make any sound. There is no loss of power. The road in the tunnel is perfect, especially if you put on tires. Hiro explained that these are covers for the wheels to improve driving efficiency. He estimated that the combination of the cart, the strength of the two, and the road allowed them to travel at about 50 kilometers per hour. Agatha then agreed that such carriages would indeed be useful. Hiro designed another one for Takumu, and thinks he'll definitely come up with something for him. Agatha will be very grateful for this. Hibana and Takumu competed during the run and even decided to have a duel. She made a commitment to win, so as not to lose face. And he gave his respect for steadfastness. And they did a very good job. Hiro thinks that Takumu will still be stronger. They have already announced their imminent arrival. And finally they came out of the tunnel. The sea stretched out before them. People were delighted at the mere sight of him. Hiro suggested that they go fishing. They were going to catch a whole bunch of fish, some for themselves, some for their wives. And all the people sat down, preparing for fishing. Everyone was very happy. With the tunnel, they had managed to connect the main part of the country to the sea, and it was time to take the next step. The sea is not the final destination, but only the beginning. There were still a great many great goals ahead. And he remembered that he needed to tell about wheat. The whole people also worked in the field. And finally, wheat appeared in Cardosa. It's time to reap the harvest. She asked how he managed to gather so many people. He replied that they had already collected all the potatoes, and this time, the long-awaited wheat. When Hibana asked what the device was, he explained that it was called a human-powered combine. And what about the wheelbarrow with the blade sticking out of the end? People power it, and it helps them harvest, so at this rate, they're going to set new harvest records. He's just glad they have wheat now, and he also built a threshing machine and a water wheel. But he probably overdid it, and Agatha doesn't like it. He scolded Hiro for making up too much, and asked what if another country noticed all this. Hiro apologized, but Takumu just laughed, because it was only thanks to him that they had a large harvest. And this means only one thing. This year they will have enough food for everyone, Thanks to innovative work with fertilizers, potato yields have increased. And since they caught a lot of fish, they consume less potatoes, and thanks to the salt, they can pickle their food. And now they grow a lot more wheat. Luckily, everything worked out for them. The issue of cutting food costs is a thing of the past. When they distribute the food among the people, there will be a lot left over, and they use it for two purposes. The first is supplies in case of war. Neighboring countries will attack in the spring, so more food supplies are needed. They buy salt from their neighbors, and it cannot be that they will not understand that the situation in their country has improved, but it is only a matter of time. It takes time to gather troops and supplies. To invade Cardosa, you have to cross the mountains, and in winter there is too much snow to even approach them. So it is obvious that they will most likely start the invasion in the spring. By spring, they must gain enough strength to defeat their neighbors. So they have already started the necessary preparations, food supply being one of them. Then you need to create an army, and naturally, their army will have magic swords, but this is not enough. He wanted to ask Takuma to take up training in the winter so that he could prepare for war, and he would do so, and when the war began, they would smash everyone to smithereens. And they will return the lands and people that they took from them. Hiro agreed with Takuma. The lands that were taken from them had unique fertility and a population of over 2,000 people. Besides, he wants to help his suffering people. So Takuma could start working right now, because with the magic sword in hand, they wouldn't lose. But Agatha asked them to slow down a little. He was afraid that they might invade from the other side. Their neighbors are warlike and unfriendly, but they still have some kind of relationship with them. If they attack from here, then other countries will ask for reinforcements. But if, on the other hand, they attack them, and as soon as they win, they will be able to establish relations with their neighbors, because there will always be countries that will abandon their neighbors if there is a good reason. Hiro thinks that there are many reasons for such betrayal, so they will not touch them. Takuma understood everything after listening to Agatha. And Agatha suggests that they have a chance to win this war, and asked if Hiro could create a weapon capable of defeating their neighbors. He replied that if they had time until spring, they would have time. But only if they can get the iron. He has the plans, but a lot of metal will be needed. They cannot simply collect iron sand or buy iron from other countries. When Takuma asked if he really would make it in time, he said not to worry. After all, when he was at sea, an interesting idea came to his mind. Agatha had high hopes for him, and they decided to discuss another use for food. His brother allowed him to organize a harvest festival. The harvest festival would provide not only a bountiful harvest, but also a chance to rest for their beloved people, and he suggested this, but was unsure whether it was worth using their reserves to hold a festival that had been canceled 12 years ago. But now they can do it. They work hard to make the country prosperous, and one day they will bring their sister back. And his father will certainly be surprised when he wakes up. Afterwards, Hiro decided to leave. After all, today he will be busy with royal affairs. The harvest festival was in full swing. People ate, sang, danced, played. A carriage rolled out of the castle. Inside them sat Hiro and Hibana, and they saw how people were having a good time. And today's speech will make this holiday even more exciting. Hiro began to climb the stand. The soldiers were the first to notice him. The people began to shout and thank the prince for saving the country. Suddenly, someone called him the Prince of Salt. After all, this was the best thing the prince gave them. Hiro didn't even understand why they called him the Prince of Salt. They love him because he gave them back their salt. Takuma said to be proud of it, because he brought smiles to the faces of the people. The love of the people is the best medicine for the country. Nayuki also congratulated the Prince of Salt on this. Hiro didn't understand at all what kind of Prince of Salt he was. Suddenly, the crowd started calling him the Prince of Wheat. Another new nickname. Takumu laughed at such a worthy nickname. Agatha wondered which nickname was better, since both salt and wheat were sufficient feats for Hiro. Nayuki then suggested calling him the Prince of Salt and Wheat. The two of them agreed in unison. Hiro asked them not to play with names. After all, they are responsible for the salt, and Agatha for the wheat. And he asked why all the glory went to him. But then he just smiled. He believed in their brother's desire to save the country, and he made the right decision when he told them everything. Takumu then asked him to continue. He nodded, then turned to the crowd and cleared his throat. Addressing the people, he introduced himself as the third prince, Hiro Cardosa. People naturally knew him, and even noticed how he grew up. Hiro took a deep breath, and he declared that from that day on he was the king of Cardosa. His family and friends silently supported him. He dreams of the same things they dream of and strives for them, so he wants to share his thoughts with the people. And first of all, I decided to ask whether the country has become better or not. The people shouted in unison that of course the country had become better. They had salt, fish, bread. Then Hiro asked if this could always be the case. The people again answered in unison, yes. But Hiro said it probably wouldn't be easy. People made thoughtful and even frightened faces. Their country has a long way to go. They have salt and food for the whole winter. But that's where it all ends, and he's not happy with it. He wants more good food, more entertainment, more comforts. And he is not satisfied with simply not going hungry. And he asked if they drank the ale that Nayuki had prepared. It tasted good, and they became happier. It's an extravagance they don't need if they just want to live. But this enriches the country and the heart. To preserve this wealth, that is what it means to be happy. He wants to enrich this country, and he wants them to do the same. And he will lead them to happiness. Hiro doesn't want to save the country. He wants a better tomorrow. And he declared to his whole nation to rise up. He couldn't do it alone. His friends followed him. But this is still not enough to carry out this sword. He needs the power of the people. The people stood and were silent, even shaking. Suddenly, they all shouted in unison, "Long live King Hiro!" He was very pleased with such a bright reaction. Instead of fearing death and hunger, they look forward and believe that tomorrow will be better. People believed in the future he described to them, and very soon they will live like this. They will be rich and happy. He promised that if they followed him, he would make the kingdom of Cardosa prosper. This is his first promise as king. After the speech, fireworks exploded in the sky. The soldiers did a good job with the fireworks. But fireworks are just a waste. But it is a beautiful and inspiring sight. This waste is the happiness he wants to show everyone. And he hoped that everyone who saw him understood his feelings. Someone congratulated him on becoming king. It was Hibana. She said that Hiro was thinking too much for the festival again. Maybe it's because he wants to please everyone. With her, he feels like he can go anywhere. That's why he wants her to follow him and be with him. After all, his next goal is to get iron, and for it he will go to the other side of the sea. Hibana naturally agreed, since she is his sword. That night they celebrated. Full of hope, he rejoiced so much that he forgot all those years of pain. It is not enough to simply save, just as it is not enough to simply live. Now he has only learned to live, but this is only a starting point. His goal is beyond the horizon. If he is content with the present, he will not be able to move forward. He, Hiro Cardosa, who was reborn as a prince, and he strives for the prosperity of his country,